Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 167. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Quite recently, it was my birthday, and we're celebrating this show. I find lots of comfort in my little corner, don't you know? In honor of my special day, Sean promised to make me one of my heroes. It's probably one of his tricks. Unfortunately, from the look on his face and the sledgehammer in the corner, I'm guessing he means Ragdoll from Secret Six. So says the sensei of the Whatnot segment.
How's it going, eh? I was wondering where you're going with this one.
Happy birthday, by the way. Happy belated on the show.
Belated, yes.
Did you get a chance to watch? I got you the Superman.
Yes. I've actually.
Did you get to watch some of those?
I watched some of them. Yeah.
I didn't realize you hadn't seen that. That was the Dini-verse.
I'd seen like an
Dini
episode
and
here.
Tim-verse,
I'd seen an episode here, episode there. I didn't have the series. I never really saw more than one episode. It's kind of cool.
It's really hard when it comes to your birthday. Because your sister sent me an email asking me, what do I get Jim? And I sent back and I just said, it's kind of the problem with the fact that, most of the time when you and I get together now, we talk comics and things like that. We both buy the stuff that we're looking for. So it's like I can go back, but you've been buying a lot of back trades.
Yeah, I've been going back and finding other trades. Yeah.
So I wanted to get something that you wouldn't have to return. And I'm like, I haven't heard him talk about having this at all. And I know what your Superman fan you are. So I hope you enjoy those.
Oh, definitely, dude. Yeah, thank you.
I want to remind everybody about the Hero Initiative, heroinitiative.org for more info. And we continue to have a handy-dandy link on ragingbullets.com. Just the cost of a comic to help out yesterday's creators who really laid the framework. If we all pitch in and do that, it's really going to make a difference. And, a big supporter of that. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Green Lantern Agent Orange hardcover. Jim, this is Green Lantern number 39 to 42. The storyline that introduces the Orange Lantern. Yeah. Mine.
Yeah.
Dude, those issues, it's regularly $19.99, 40% off, only $11.99. That's a big savings. If you can grab you're talking about if you were going to get that, that's $8.
Yeah, I know, and we were talking earlier about how maybe curbing our expenses and maybe not getting all the trades. We've talked in the past and stuff like. I'm like, I got to get this because I'm loving this Green Lantern story. $11. I'm like, okay, I can drop $11 for this hardcover of a great story, and I'm getting the full stuff leading up to it. I've been getting the hardcover since the Sinestro Corps War. Now I'm getting the lead up to Blackest Night. I'm going to get Blackest Night when it comes out in hardcover because it's going to come out. These are things I'm getting in.
Here's where DCB service works for me because we talk about rising comics prices. The next one I was going to do Superman Secret Origin. When you compare that $8, that's a book that's $3.99 cover price. 50% off, it's $1.99. So I get $1.99 books. I can get three $1.99, $1.99. It's 3 or 4 books depending on their discounts because not all of them are 50% off. But geez, that does help. 3 or 4 books off of that $8 savings.
Yeah, booyah!
Especially if you're going to buy the hardcover anyway.
Yeah,
that's one of those things where it makes a huge difference on your budget. But Superman Secret Origins is one of 6, and this is Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and John Sabal. Hot off the heels of their acclaimed run on Action Comics, superstars Jeff Johns and Gary Frank reunite to present a 6-issue event that spells out the definitive origin of Superman for the 21st century. And it all starts with a gigantic 48-page issue. It's a $3.99 is the cover price, but it's a 48-page issue.
Wow.
I got no problem with that price point.
Yeah. Outstanding. Holy crud. I didn't realize it was that big.
I just assumed with, it was funny. One of our listeners, I did listen to one of the voicemails, and when we do our voicemails on this episode, one of the listeners did point out that Batman and Robin was $2.99, not $3.99. And I guess I assumed that everything was jumping to $3.99, but it does look like it's mainly the books that have extra or only the books that have
the
extra pages.
Content, yeah.
So that's interesting so far. I'll be curious to see if they stick to that. But still, $3.99 for a 48-page book is not a bad deal. But that's a 6-issue mini I've been really waiting for. Yeah, it seems like a long time since we finally got to this, but I think it's because I've anticipated.
That's a salivation waiting.
Yeah, because I like the Green Lantern Secret Origin so much. So, and we're going to remind everyone about For Tomorrow from Brian Azzarello and artists Jim Lee and Scott Williams comes the oversized slipcase volume collecting the entire 12-issue run of For Tomorrow. The absolute version is available, or the hardcover version, the trade paperback version at discounts from DCB Service. It's 204 to 215 of Superman. A cataclysmic event has struck the Earth. Millions of people have vanished without a trace. No one is left unaffected, not even Superman. Now the Man of Steel must face the mystery of how millions of people vanished without a trace. And there's a battle with Wonder Woman. He has to come face to face with the Justice League, this villainous Equus. And then the villain responsible for this whole thing. It's an amazing story filled with a whole bunch of people. Regularly $75 for that absolute, 40% off, only $39.75. Trade paperbacks volume 1 and 2, $14.99 regularly, 47% off, only $7.94. It's almost like buy one get one free, which I appreciate InStockTrades.com for supporting our listeners with that discount, so you can get it in either version, which is really, really great. I want to say DCBService.com is having their 10th anniversary July 11th. If you are going to be in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com are at 611 Highview Drive, Suite B. And they're going to be having all kinds of comic guests, Steve Bryant, Robert Atkins, Mike Norton, 90% off Ding and Den items, 10-cent back issues, extra discount on toys, statues, prints, and T-shirts, $1 or buy one, get one free on specially marked manga. So, it's really great stuff. So if you're in the area, stop by and get some of those discounts and celebrate with DCBService.com.
Yeah. And let me just say, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Jim? What kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Did you actually practice that?
No. Why would you say that?
Just because the last few, it's either been a song or a flub. Yeah. Which I've enjoyed immensely, yeah, so that's not a complaint. That sound effect.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Sensei, this is it, the last part of our review of Long Halloween.
Dun,
the writer is Jeff Loeb. The artist is Tim Sale. Colors by Gregory Wright. Letters by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft. Chuck Kim is the assistant editor. Archie Goodwin was the editor. And then we're going to be doing issues 10 to 13 today, finishing off and kicking off with issue 10, Independence Day. It's kind of cool because this shadowy figure of the Cat and the Bat, both trying to free Gotham from what is controlling it. Catwoman is going after Falcone, and Batman, Holiday, and, Falcone too, but his focus right now is in the killer.
Yeah, his focus is on Holiday, and it's, and that's actually his main MO that Batman has is he usually lets, the crime bosses, the things that are normal, let the Gotham PD deal with. He deals with the stuff outside of the normal. He deals with the freaks and the misfits and the whatnot. I
will argue, though, it's funny in these issues, it was funny how differently I read this time, and I realized how much those distractions hurt this case. The distractions caused by Falcone. A lot of the freaks that we're talking about were actually directly because of Falcone employing them. So Falcone is a major factor in why it took so long to get Holiday.
Yeah, and he had other distractions that we're going to see, which I like the fact that Bruce was, we see, yes, he is the world's greatest detective, but he kind of was led astray by some of his own opinion, his own gut. He knew something wasn't right there, and he was assuming that it was, he was assuming that it was Dent, and he was suspecting Dent, and he was looking into Harvey more and more.
Yet fighting it as well.
Yeah, but he knew there wasn't something 100% right, and that's what was throwing him off.
See, what I liked about it too, though, is that isn't totally on him. Because of the fact that they were all looking for one person, the clues didn't add up. So, and actually the reason why he looked at Dent, the clues do point at the Dents.
Oh, big time.
For very good reasons.
Hey, as I've admitted, I completely missed who the real Holiday was. I missed the big swerve. And even though there are clues throughout this thing, my first read-through, I was so focused that it was Harvey all along. That, I was just like Bruce. I was very, I had the blinders on and I was focused on one thing. And every time I read a new clue, I'm like, see, it's more pointing toward Harvey. It's more pointing towards Harvey.
Right. The opening up with the death of the coroner was really jarring, which worked well because we haven't seen it so soon in an issue. To have like the death right away thrown in your face. It's great because we still aren't 100% sure until later why the coroner was even a target.
And it's funny because being Independence Day, July 4th, so it's beginning of the month. That's why I was right in the beginning of the book. I liked that. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing I picked up. And when the coroner,
oh, that's interesting. See, I never looked at it that way, but that makes.
That's why I thought,
timeline-wise, that would fit.
Right
That's
at the
great.
beginning. And I thought that was
taking that each issue like roughly a month of time.
And the thing for me, I felt this more proved Harvey's guilt because I figured the coroner, would know something, and because they're both kind of like on the inside of the. Inside of the police and whatnot, the supporting unit for the police, he probably went up to Harvey, tried to blackmail him, saying, hey, I got this evidence on you, dun-dun-dun, kind of thing, and so Harvey had to kill him.
Kill who?
Kill the coroner.
Okay. I was laughing before you said coroner.
Wait, come on.
I was trying to get you to say it again.
No, I caught it as I said it.
You did. I was like, darn it.
Please.
I was foiled again.
I was hoping you weren't paying attention, but I was wrong.
Believe me, if I had any time I had marbles in the mouth in this show. Great coloring choice for everything black and white except for the fireworks. It fit the whole night scene. I really liked that choice. Selena's commentary here was the highlight. She points out some genuine turmoil that he has recently had with Dent and Ivy. Why wouldn't Bruce just leave? The dialogue, I know places, things we could do. It's almost totally mimicked by Catwoman later.
Yeah.
To Batman. So that was part of the reason why I'm starting to think Bruce is starting to know here a little bit more about her. Might still be in denial the way he is with Harvey at this point.
He's got to know, or if not, he's in denial.
But this point of what would it take to let go? Now, that is interesting. We all have things that drive and motivate us. They also define us. We also have concepts of home and identity. What would it take to get you to change who you are? I mean, to start a new life and let go of the old one. So, I mean, like for you, what would it take to get you... Because basically giving up Gotham for him, giving up all that, is directly changing not just a location, but his identity. And that's an interesting twist because you're and I'm throwing this directly at you because you're very set in who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Okay? I know you, location-wise, you wouldn't have a whole lot of trouble doing that. But what about this concept of really giving up what drives and motivates who you are?
I am. Like, employment-wise, I could let that go very easily. But like if someone were to say, hey, you got to give up the podcast or you got to give up comic books, that would be a tough one for me. I had one of my many exes, at the time when we were still doing paintball. And I was very heavy into it. I was enjoying paintball. And she basically said, hey, it's time to grow up. You're acting like a little kid. Why are you doing this type of stuff? And
I'm not laughing at you.
No.
I'm more laughing with you because out of the two of us, I guarantee you I've had that conversation a lot more.
And it was over something as stupid as paintball. And to be honest with you, that for me was the final straw. That was the final thing. I'm like, okay, da-da-da. And as she's sitting there telling me, you got to grow up, you got to mature, I'm grabbing my stuff that I had, because I was at her place, I was grabbing some of my stuff that was there, shoes and jacket and all that, and I'm just casually, calmly putting it on. And she just finally gets on, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm leaving now. This is it. And I literally ended it over paintball. So, but that wasn't a strong, passionate relationship. Now, for me to actually give up, comic books, for me to give up podcasting.
Your relationship with the things that are important to you, the things that define who you are as a person, and it's not to say that paintball defines you, but just the concept of being able to do things like that. Because I know paintball for you was about camaraderie. Because I know the friends of ours that you would go paintballing with, and the relationship, just here, I never went paintballing with you guys, but I enjoyed when we'd all get together afterwards, and the conversations you guys would have, and it's that friendship and camaraderie that's important to you. That was what you got out of that. So, I mean, that's why I thought it was an interesting discussion point, because I think everybody who's listening to this can relate to the fact there's things that define you. And that's what Bruce is being asked to give up here, not just a location.
Right, and that's the whole thing. There's more, and you're hitting it right on the head. The nail on the head. There's more to it than just the paintball. For Bruce, it's more than just crime fighting. It's the pledge he made to his parents. Mm-hmm. It's that sacred oath that he swore that no one else would go through what he went through. And that's what she would be asking him to give up. And it's funny because I was going to make a little joke about how, hot woman like Selena asked me to give up, like, okay, we're gone. But, I couldn't even make that joke because there was just so much, more to Bruce than just, beating up on bad guys. That was the difference between him and Jason Todd. That was the thing he was trying to get Jason out of. Jason was doing Robin for the adrenaline rush. Mm-hmm. He got his kicks out of beating up people and being the dominant, the powerful one. Because he didn't as a kid have that control. Whereas Bruce does this for the calling. Dick does this for the calling. Tim does it for the calling. That's the difference between those members of the Bat family and Jason Todd. It's why do they do it? What is their motivation behind it? It's, a sacred, internal, personal, connection that they have with the mission at hand. It's not just something they do. It's who they are. We always say, who is real? Is Batman real? Is Bruce Wayne real? And there's always those great debates going back and forth. Which is the mask?
Clearly a mask.
Which is the mask?
Right.
And for me, it's I say it's as you're saying, they're both the mask.
There's not a simple answer to that.
There's no one set. Both of them are going towards the mission. Mm-hmm. Both of them have this calling that they have to do, and they deal with the calling in different ways, depending on which persona they're carrying on.
I think the best writers play off of that too.
And they recognize that, then they bring that out. Yeah.
Right. I think it's interesting. I had to think about the reason why I brought up that question. I had to think about that. I'm like, okay, I'm a school teacher right now. I really love that. It keeps me young. It's honestly, monetarily, to go back to school for me and go into administration. I went for my master's. I went into computers because I deliberately wanted to stay in the classroom. If I ever were to do something outside of that, I would want to teach something else, not stop teaching. So, computers would be the next avenue, but that led into a supplemental for me and things like that. But administration would clearly be a decent amount more money for me to go and do that. But that would take me away from what it is that I enjoy so much about it.
Yeah, you'd be miserable, dude.
Oh, I'd hate it. Because, it's a nice compliment. Coworkers of mine have said, geez, you'd be really great if you were to be a principal. It's a very flattering comment for people that you work with to say that. But I tell them multiple times, I said, no, I wouldn't. Because I said I wouldn't be happy. And I think my favorite administrators are ones that clearly, growing up, our friend Bill, his dad.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was a great administrator because he liked it. and you got that out of it. Like, he enjoyed being there. I would want to be that person.
Yeah.
That to me is like, I like my job. I like going there every day. And I think the kids get something out of me teaching them because not only do I work hard to prepare their lessons, but I actually enjoy delivering them, which I think there is a point to that. But I think to give that up when, that's a very rich experience to have something that defines you. My relationship defines me. My wife very much lets me be who I am. I think those things, to give them up, I think, to give up your life, my teaching job would be very tough for me to give up.
Yeah.
I'd have to teach somewhere or do something like that because I like that. It defines me. So, that was... that point, I think it's something people listen to this, you want to think about that. I liked how that was so in your face here. What she was asking was not so much leaving a location because he couldn't be the kind of person he is in Gotham. The promise that he was making to his parents to go and do that in San Diego or even if he still dressed up, it wouldn't be the same thing. His promise was to change the home where his parents were murdered to initiate change there. It was cool. Bruce needs to be locked up. Now, we all know he's got a thing for Selena, and I think the big Gotham flashlight could have waited. But, all kidding aside, this is another character-defining moment. I think he could have gone with her and been very happy. The two of them have brought out the adventure in each other, and they would have had quite the life. But that moment, it shows how driven he is, because I think he could have been quite happy with her, but there would have been that core element of him missing.
Yeah. It was like, if you remember from that Mask of the Phantasm, the Deaniverse movie.
Oh yeah, that's great.
You know, when he was sitting there, just like, you know, and he's sitting at his parents' grave, saying, you know, I haven't forgotten you. I'll give money to the police. I'll help them out. I'll you know, do charity work. I just, you know, it doesn't hurt as bad. Yeah, I had that same type of feeling, you know, when I was, you know, seeing this, because you could feel the temptation, you know, and it's, you know,
because people search their whole life for the perfect mate. Sometimes we get only one chance. Sometimes we get a few chances. Sometimes, you know, and that becomes difficult too when you get a few chances. But sometimes fate passes us by so that, you know, you never get that chance. You know, it's very lucky in life when you come across that. So for him to, and I do read her very much in this as the perfect mate for him. She would have given him a life that I think he would have, I think the two of them would have bettered each other.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, where
big time.
she would have given up the life that she's currently leading. I think she would have kept him feeling young and alive. I think there would have been something to the two of them, but it's really sad when you see these kind of turn of events. And that is, there's a lot of relationship tragedy either hinted at for the future when you look at Jim and Barbara, or what happens with Gilda and Harvey and Bruce and Selena, for example. Gilda and Harvey is obviously much worse, but a lot of tragedy to relationships in Gotham.
And this got me thinking of a what-if story. And I wonder if they ever did anything like this, explored this. Mm-hmm. Not just Bruce and, you know, Selena being together, but Bruce and Selena being together and Bruce kind of, you know, crossing over. Not a full-on criminal, but you know how Selena kind of skates the line where she does steal, she does the high-end cat burglary, she makes these huge donations. You know, I wonder if Bruce could ever, like, cross that line. You know, so it would be Catwoman and, you know, Catman. And they would both be, you know, thieves breaking in, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor type thing, plus keeping a little bit for themselves. Just, you know.
I want to say there was an Elseworlds story that explored that. I might be wrong on that.
If anybody knows of one, you can let me know. I'd appreciate that greatly.
I wish. See, it was funny. A lot of the great Elseworlds came out during my college years, where I had to sell some of my books just to make, you know, because you need money. You know,
you made money.
You know, I had a part-time job until I went full-time doing that. But I mean, it was. So I purged a lot of great because there was a while there where a lot of my purchasing was solely Batman focused, because that was all I could afford at the time. And it was when that great Elseworlds run was coming out, where it was like they were doing regularly some just terrific explorations of alternate universes with Batman. I want to say I thought I read one where he kind of skirted that line. It wasn't like a true villain per se, but he skirted the line kind of like Catwoman does.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's ever, because that
might be wrong.
Me would be a cool story.
It's been so many years, I don't know. Harvey already flipping the coin was very cool. But more importantly is how the art showed the difference in this relationship between Batman and Harvey Dent. Harvey's clearly uncomfortable. Much of this is due to Bruce. He's not at eye level and close to him. Like, because we were on the roof before, they were all like, you know, standing by each other and all that. He's distant on a ledge with his arms crossed. Clearly the DA is somewhat on trial here. Batman's feeling him out. When Harvey brings up the deal, Batman reminds him that he's been trying to bring down the Roman. It was Harvey who got sidetracked. Interesting interplay here between the two.
Yeah, and I like this. The coloring was a little bit darker, whereas last time they could actually see each other's faces. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a big thing with being able to look a man in the eye.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that trust. And they had when all three of them were making that agreement, they were all right there, looking each other in the face, knowing. And it was almost as if Bruce had dropped the mask, dropped the cowl down, and you could really see him. Granted, he didn't actually, but it was that closeness and that familiarity.
It's the belief in this man, because that belief thing occurs all the way through it, and I think belief is really important. An important character trait to this story. What do people believe in, and how much do you believe in something? Is it enough to drive you on at your darkest, at your lowest? And Harvey Dent is one of those critical things that he believed in, is hope for Gotham.
Yeah.
It's tragic once again because Harvey mans up here. He admits his mistake. His own obsessions sidetracked him. He wants to use Maroni and take a break. And obviously he realizes that he's lost sight of things, professionally and personally as well. It's really sad because he and Gilda, I think, would have had a chance if the events took a different turn.
Yeah,
if he had a chance to get away and maybe kind of regroup for himself, that might have been his one opportunity. Timing was terrible for this man.
Yeah, I know. It's a classic tragedy. It's it's your Greek tragedy where they could have made it. They could have. Fate steps in. Throws you a knuckleball.
Yeah, because there is a certain point later when they talk about him snapping, and we'll talk more in detail to it when we get to it. But where you're saying, okay, it's clear from things we've seen in this that those psychoses, those issues that he's had, have always been there. But pivotal events pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, where maybe he could have gotten help. Maybe some time away with maybe just time away with his wife, maybe a new venue. I honestly think if he would have left Gotham, I don't see them having come back, especially if they'd had a child or something like that.
Oh, God, no.
That different path, what would that have led him on? When Holiday is mentioned, do you think that Harvey would have left before that was done? Like, if Maroney had paid off,
yeah, if they'd been able
Falcone had been behind bars, would he have stayed for Holiday, or do you think he would have been gone and just said, you know what, guys, I stuck to my promise, I stuck to the goals here, Gilda and I need to get away? What do you think he would have done?
I actually think he would have gone.
I do too.
I think he would have left if they can get if they got the Roman down. He would have left before Holiday was done, and it would have been and I'd even say Gordon would have been okay with it. Bruce would have been, why is he leaving?
Or an alternate take, and it's funny because this is how real the person is, because I could see that possibility. I could also see that re-energizing him, though, seeing some hope that he can actually make a positive change in Gotham, that the system works, and him striving to go after Holiday, but Gilda then going down
a darker path.
Path. Then I can't get much darker, but
well, hey.
But I mean, an outwardly dark path. It's interesting because I can see both sides of it, so it's not really a contradiction. We'll never know that because the coroner was discovered, and that was sure to baffle them. It kind of ended that conversation, but I would have been curious to see that conversation play out and see what Harvey would have said to Bruce. I did like that Catwoman is listening in. The Roman is her concern as well, and we get to see those moments visually as well as later Bruce plays it out.
Yeah, I really do like when, the cat stuff where she goes, kind of stuff. Normally I don't like, the classic TV show where the Catwoman always had the perfect talking, that used to annoy me even as a kid.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I'm really digging seeing Catwoman go, right. Kind of like the cat type noises.
Remember, I did the whack-a-mole in one of the previous episodes. I forget what I even put in the whack-a-mole, but I think it needs to be changed to Pound of Vernon.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm so angry with him now because of what is coming for Harvey.
Yeah, he's just the weasel of weasels, man. And, he's one of those guys where as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, man, please, please something good happen.
And I mean that genuinely. Like, I would love to buy a whack-a-mole game and somehow gets, the artwork superimposed on those little moles and just beat up Vernon like once a day. I think it would make me feel good. Sophia and Sal are an eHarmony ad gone wrong. Saturday Night Live had this spoof called eHarmony, and these two are an easy candidate for the program. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, where's a female version of yourself.
Yeah. It was like a clone of yourself that was female. This was another Godfather moment. Sophia talking about this when she realized that Holiday wasn't Maroney. She went to the jail and didn't squeal on Maroney. Loyalty and a code are needed here. Papa knows it was Dent who got you into this mess. Without Dent, everybody lays off. I know you'll do the right thing, Sal. It's that code. Gilda and respect and those type of things. Gilda's state of mind says a lot. Barbara is still surviving and has a positive attitude considering. Gilda, though, is missing out on the family she longs for. I think she sees what the job is doing to Harvey and sees this as their own personal hell. The baby bottle toppers on the windowsill. It was a very powerful way. It was in the first frame and in the last frame of this sequence. It's kind of the art's way of almost pointing us at the truth, which I didn't really notice before.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool that saying, one of them's in here.
Yeah.
It framed a sequence with her part of this whole him and her Holiday hint scenario. Jim makes an interesting point here. They keep using familiarity as a clue to the identity, but Bruce does get in closer even when people don't know him. That saying, why does it have to be somebody who knew?
Yeah, the criminal. He's able to sneak up very easily.
Right. So It was an interesting little point to add. In this case, the coroner did know the killer. And I said coroner. Just for you, pal. But it was an interesting point, to say that. I liked that.
And I did one quick thing, just backtrack with the Gilda thing and Gilda and Barbara. Yeah, it was funny. When I first read that, I fully was reading it one way. I was reading it as this is further evidence that, it's Harvey, because she's sitting there and you could see she knows something's not right with her husband. She knows he's being driven. And I'm just like, oh man, this is just further. I'm like going through this like further evidence that she's seeing the darkness in Harvey. And
she was though. But see, that's the funny part though, because even at the end of this book, it's funny that you make that point, and that's why it works so well. In her mind, she never accepts that he wasn't part of it. Even in the end, when it's in her face, she's totally convinced that it's him.
But it's also, though, I like the fact how she brings up the fact that he was the Apollo of the city. He could do no wrong. And those lines when she's saying that into Barbara about how everything will be better, everything, and it's that same mindset that she had throughout all of this.
But in her mind, he is her Apollo. Yeah. He's doing this for her, for them, so they can have the life that they want. That's the powerful point. I agree with you. This segment works on both levels. Yeah, it worked the first time through to point at him, but when you start reading it again and really taking a look at it, it works when you know what she's thinking. She never gives that up. Yeah. And she genuinely believes that he, as her Apollo, is making this sacrifice. He's doing these things to give them the time that they need for a child, for a family, for a home.
Better life, yeah.
And it really works both ways, which is what's so brilliant about the scene. You can read it twice and get a completely different view of it.
Yeah, and she's a character I wish, I said this before in previous recordings, I really wish she was still around.
Oh, yeah.
Because this character that we're seeing here would have been awesome with teaming up with Two-Face.
Yeah. Or even kind of doing her own, because I see her going crazy in a different way. And it would be interesting to see what that relationship looked like if they'd even have one.
See, I think we would still see a relationship, or we would see, one of Harvey's personas would have a relationship with her, the other wouldn't. So that would really even, or like, even if she would develop multiple personality or I don't know, I could just see something. She's a character who they still could do more with, especially the very end. There's a scene in the very end that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they threw this out and it didn't continue on in future issues.
Well, thematically, things that happen in this particular story continue on into Dark Victory and into One in Rome. I know I'm a broken record. I've said it all 3 episodes, but if you've read this for the first time, anybody listening to this, you read Long Halloween and you're like, wow, this is really great. I really enjoyed this. And you really found this to be something that you have to do yourself a favor and pick up the rest of this.
Yeah.
And really just delve into it, because you're going to, thematically, there's things in here that are developed in this that continue on into the other ones. There's things that they didn't explore in this that they do explore into the other ones. It's funny. This could be such an ongoing, and I would love following this universe the way it's laid out. It could easily, I would love to see another mini from these guys, and hopefully down the road, there's, Jeff Loeb's doing work over at Marvel right now, but down the road, if he comes back to DC, I'm hoping he's got another Batman story in him to do with Tim Sale, because I would love to see another. Oh God, yeah! I'd love to see another one of these because they were so great. So I was so glad for the panel about the coroner and how it made no sense with what they knew before. If you're analyzing and trying to link each of the murders to try and find clues, it would open up a new possibility when you start linking things together. And this right here, they didn't have the chance to really explore this. And that was the part where the events that were going on around them, the chaos that goes on in Gotham, really got in the way of them solving this crime. Because they'd start to hit on something that was a pivotal moment. And they never got a chance to continue the path of that conversation. And there was I liked that there was multiple conversations. You got to see great detective work going on that was leading them to the answer, but they never got to take it because of some event.
Yeah, I tell you, I would have loved to have seen those two just go back and forth, and because that's two great detectives right there. Just laying it out.
Two very different people too, and that was what the great thing was. They were each bringing something to the table, and I like those moments where we see that relationship with Jim Gordon isn't just because, hey, Batman rescues and does all these other things for us because we can't. There is something that Batman needs from Jim Gordon. He brings something to the table, a sense of by the book, a sense of by the code, and he presents evidence and clues as a good detective should, a good police captain should, or commissioner in this case.
Yeah, and here's the deal. One of the things with a lot of the police departments, the detective bureaus, any type of investigators or whatnot, where when you're going through it, you have your case, but there's times when you just start bouncing ideas off of people. Yeah. You sit there and you're just going back and forth, and it's a great way to visualize what's going on, especially even if you got somebody who just listens and then will throw in this, hey, what about this? What about that? And you go back and forth, and it's sometimes some really cool stuff can happen, but you have to not only trust, respect, and you have to have that connection between the two people. Like if you have somebody brand new, you're not going to have somebody you're not going to be able to have that open rapport. You're not going to be able to bounce ideas off each other. You have to have that trust that when I say something to this person, they're going to be able to listen, hear what I'm saying, maybe add something, maybe not. And that's, for me, was just a cool potential moment that I started seeing this, and fireworks interrupted. Oh, dang it. Because it was just, they had just that potential for this amazing story.
What would have happened to Harvey, though, if Bruce had been able to finish? What about Holiday? Had these guys been able to really analyze things? I mean, it was really one of those things where circumstances in Gotham, I liked how that they're pursuing every angle, but it really is something that they can't control. Gotham City has blue shirts that talk like Chicken Little. The sky is falling! The sky is falling! The fireworks are Scarecrow and the Hatter. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If 7 maidens with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose they could get it clear? The scary part is these two actually understand each other. Yeah. This is some bizarre form of communication for them. They were trading off back and forth conversation, and they were getting the points they were trying to come across, and I really liked that.
Yeah, and I love the fact that these guys really, if they had gone with an ultra-modern type thing where they got an armored car and multiple vehicles and got a crew and they may have gotten away with it. It would have been tough because they're still going up against Batman, but the fact that they had to go with a horse-drawn carriage, to keep kind of with their theme, and it was just the two of them, and it was just doing it all manually, and it was just their style and their goofiness that they're going on with that is them. Well,
Jim right now is having a phone call in the middle of our podcast recording, so I figured I would share it with all of you.
Well, right now we're in the middle of recording.
Yeah, who's on the phone, Joe?
Our friend Joe.
Tell him we said hi.
Yeah, Sean says hi, by the way.
No, not just me, everybody.
The podcast. The Raging Bullets does say hi to you, Joe, because right now we're in the middle of recording. He said sweet. He was glad.
That's good.
Yeah. Woohoo!
I had to laugh because we usually go through such painstaking efforts to get. I have a phone in here that I think has made it onto a couple of podcast episodes that has gone off on the show before, and I think you've never done that on our show. You've done it on other shows, which is rather funny.
Yeah, that was the first time that the
show got been on our show. It's been on Comic Timing. I think,
Comic Time multiple times.
Yeah. I think on Geeks Unite.
Maybe on Geeks Unite, yeah. That was our good friend Joe, and his son just finished up a baseball game, so
very
he was
cool.
calling to,
Very cool.
Yeah.
As the Scarecrow is delivering a twisted reply, Batman, a.k.a. the Blackbird, comes sweeping in. I like the moment where he takes everything in as he fights. He often uses the seconds that he has to his advantage. He recognizes that the scene of the crime and the money point to the Roman. Bruce's mind running over the violation by the Scarecrow. You hone yourself to the perfect control of your mind and body. When someone takes away what you worked so hard for in such a way, you'd lash out. And I really like that he fights to keep himself from enjoying the pain that he's inflicting here.
Yeah.
It's important that he doesn't learn to like or even love that aspect. It keeps him from being one of them.
But you got to admit that'd be tough to do.
Oh, and that's what I like that we see that, though.
Man, there is still the man in the bat.
Yeah. Agreed. And I like that we see that here and that there is a conflict. Catwoman saves the day from Jervis, and the flirtation continues. I thought the Beast from the X-Men bit kind of came.
Oh, my stars and garters.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought of there. Cool moment that Batman is aware of his surroundings again, to know when she's watching. The tiny things remind us of his training. He's not some thug. This is someone who is trained by various martial arts masters, so that he would be so aware of that. I know places, Batman, things only I could show you. The way she talks about money and what they could do, so similar to what Selina told Bruce, I have to believe that at this point he's on to her. You have to.
He's got to. And I like how basically he turns him down about this is the price of independence. And that for me was just the huge thing, because one of the oldest sayings out there is, freedom isn't free. And, sometimes, the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. And there's just so many different, analogies for, sacrifice, and it's the ultimate price of our freedom. It's the, I get emotional because when with giving my family and just everything dealing with that, but it really rang true with us. And we're not even talking about going to war and dying in war.
You're actually connecting with us in a different way.
I'm connecting, and it's just that whole thing with the price of independence, and it's same thing. I with Memorial Days, with Veterans Day, stuff like that, where it's, these are people who have sacrificed. Now, Bruce is in a way sacrificing something. He's giving away this absolutely wonderful, beautiful life for a really nasty one.
I connected to that, but I'm talking about the way you connect to the Independence Day level with what, with your family and all that. I wouldn't have that connection. That was interesting. So I connected with the independence and everything you were saying about their relationship I connected with, but you connected with it at a different level. I kind of liked how this story can be
there's multiple levels and there's personality. It's just it's depending on who you are.
One thing I also like too is if you take a look at visually, I do like that Bruce had to turn his head and couldn't look her in the face when he denied her. He knows that she wants the Roman and uses that as a distraction, but he deliberately visually looks away from her, and that was an interesting show. Like Harvey and Gilda, what would their lives have been if they gave all this up? And that price of independence thing, like you said. Bruce needs to be independent to stick to his mission, and life with Selina would not only divide him, it would mean having to give up the mission. And that was a very powerful chapter in this particular story.
Yeah.
Issue 11, Roman Holiday. Now, anytime I see the cake cover, I remember Batman 321 from 1980. It wasn't by far the first Batman story I'd read in comics, but it's one that sticks out. The Joker ties everyone to a giant birthday cake. And Batman turned, and I'm almost positive it's 321. I was looking on the net, and I was looking at different pictures, because I don't have the issue anymore, and it's another one of those I'd like to seek out again. But Batman turned an explosive candle into some form of rocket, and it was fantastic art, really cool. But this bizarre link with Batman and cake stemming from my childhood. I was still in elementary school when that issue came out, and there was something about that story. It was a devious, weird Joker story. It was very cool at the time. I'd be curious to read it though to see how it holds up. To me, it was, but it wasn't like super campy.
Yeah,
like the cake. In the way that it was crafted, it really was something. This was going to kill them.
I'm remembering from the TV show.
Yeah.
They had that one. I think it was Riddler. Who they tricked Batman and Robin to showing up and posing on top of some cake or something like that. And it turns out the cake was quicksand. And as they're sitting there figuring out the clue, they're starting to sink. And Batman, we're stuck. And man does not have good luck with cakes.
Well, you know what you got to. I'd love to see a top 10 list of what are the most deadly desserts in comics. Because really, cake, traditionally you don't think of it as deadly other than, heart failure, cholesterol.
Well, if we're talking deadly desserts, don't take a cannoli from, from the Godfather.
Yeah, there you go. Gilda finds one of Harvey's guns in the basement. Now, this is interesting. Do you think she was hoping that Harvey would admit to being Holiday? Somehow she could find understanding in that they were both willing to do anything to move forward in their lives. I think what interests me when I reread this each time is it's easy to see how desperate Gilda was after the reveal. It was more subtle to me in the initial readings, but the clues are there, this desperation that is increasing. We saw it with Barbara in this last issue. Now this issue, we're seeing it more. She's further along.
And I'm kicking myself for not really, locking in that she was, her role in this. And, the clues are pointed, and I was just so blinded by Harvey.
But I like, that to me is good storytelling. It's a good mystery.
Because, one of the biggest things with the way police really get confessions out of people, it's, in their core being of who they are, people feel guilty for what they're doing and they want to confess. Now, there are some people who have just been the lifetime of crime, whether it's, simple petty stuff or, bigger, in-depth, complicated scams who are able to push down that fear and able to push down that guilt.
Do you think she feels guilt?
Oh, yeah.
I disagree.
See, here's the thing. She feels guilt, but she's able to push down the guilt for the greater good. There's the greater good for her family, the greater good for the community. But there is still that underlining guilt. And there is still that underlining, want to confess, want to be absolved of what she's doing. That's part of the reason she wants to, you're saying how she wants Harvey to admit it, because that way she could admit what she's doing.
But I guess I'm reading this differently than you are. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, because I can see it on your level. Like when you're saying that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But when I'm looking at this, to me, it's for her, she feels that this city and its corruption has so wronged them that she is killing people. Look who she killed in the beginning. These are mobsters. These are people who were getting in the way of them having a normal life because of all of the evil they were doing in Gotham. I think that she thinks this is justice, and in some form, all she wants from Harvey is him to admit that he's doing it too, that he gets what she's doing and how they're doing it for them, how they're doing it to be together, to have that child, to have that family. See, there's a difference between guilt and being nuts, and I think she's nuts.
See,
nuts is probably a strong word. But I mean, I think in her head, there's a certain part of craziness in everybody when you start convincing yourself of something so much so. I see her as being... There's certain characters in this that show the transition from the mob days in Gotham that followed a certain rule and certain code, even though it was corruption. You knew what that corruption was. You could identify it, to this new age of freaks and craziness and psychoses. I think she is one of those transition people. Harvey's one of those transition people. Alberto is one of those transition people that show us the shift from a Gotham that you can look at as straight by-the-board corruption, that you're used to, and this new age of people who are just a little off, or a whole lot off, depending on who they are. Yeah. But so I guess I didn't see a guilt element here. But I mean, go ahead.
There is guilt, but it's the forces, everything you're mentioning about how she's doing things, those are the forces she uses to push down. Like, if, for example...
You're saying subconscious guilt.
Right, yeah, it's all it's not conscious guilt. It's all subconscious. Like, for example, people will all the time say, oh, how could some pedophile do what they do? Well, the pedophile convinces themselves that it's not bad because, these are sick and twisted individuals. I'm not condoning anything that they've done.
No, I know where you're going.
Well, no, I don't want anyone to get mad at me.
Right.
But they convince themselves that it's like, they asked for it. They turned me on. They were being such a tease. Look at how they're dressed. Look at how they're acting. These are things that they use to push down the guilt of what they did. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they have explanations. Like a better example of someone's... Hold on, I got another one that maybe even...
I actually want to comment on that.
Someone who steals from a bank, whether it's an employee or someone who's robbing a bank. One of the biggest things that they use to convince themselves that it's not wrong what they're doing is, come on, the bank's insured. They got that FDIC insurance. It's a victimless crime is what they'll tell themselves. And that's something she could be telling herself. There's really is a victimless crime here. I'm killing a bad guy. I'm killing a mobster. I'm killing a killer. But there is still, those are the tools, those are the things she's using to push down that subconscious guilt to allow her to do what they do.
But don't you think and I agree with you in most cases, that's true. But don't you think there are some people that are so far gone, they're so deep into their particular psychosis or issues, whatever you want to call them. I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to pretend I know the terminology. They're so far gone, though, that they don't see that as something wrong. I think if you subconsciously do realize that it's wrong, yes, you could hide it. But what if in that case you truly believe you're so far gone that you really believe you're justified? See, to me, and you and I might see Gilda differently, and that's okay, because what you're seeing, storytelling-wise, I can't really contradict that. So, we might just have an issue where we see this differently. I see her as being so far gone that Gotham has so twisted her or so hurt her, this living in this place, in this hell, and what it's done to her and to Harvey, to the point where she feels genuinely there's no reason for guilt. They're justified. These people, these mobsters, because she only killed people who were deliberately hurting others, corrupting the city. And so, and I'm not saying that there is even you have to come to an agreement. I guess that's kind of, I think we're seeing her differently. And I see it working on both levels.
Yeah, and, the thing you're talking about, that's basically the big definition of criminally insane, unfit to stand trial. And that's the difference. Is she or isn't she?
I think she'd wind up in Arkham is my take on her. I don't see her winding up in a regular prison. I think she's crazy.
See, I think it
especially at the end.
Yeah, by the end there, definitely, I think she's crossed over the line, and she probably would be in Arkham. But there is still that. I think they could still reach her before everything that happens to Harvey. I still think she could be reached, and she could actually live a productive life. Once everything that happens to Harvey, she's gone. That's it. That was the final thing that put her over the edge.
And I see her if she got caught, even by Harvey. If Harvey were to come to her and – because she is so twistedly convinced that Harvey is responsible for all this. I think if Harvey were to come to her and confront her, tell her how wrong she was, she would look at that as a betrayal. How could you possibly say that I was wrong? Look what I'm doing for us. I'm putting our future first. You aren't. I was doing all this so we could get out of this. You don't want to get out of this. Yeah. I want to get out of this. Look what I'm doing to these people. I'm making permanent solutions. It's funny, by the end of this story, and I'm going to take back what I said earlier. You're right. The two of them probably would team up by the end of this story because they're both so far gone at the end. His concept of justice and hers at the end, I think, are a lot more in line. Yeah. Then perhaps. Like, he might see the system the way that she does now. I guess I don't see a guilt element for her.
And it's not guilt as in like you or I would feel.
I think she's criminally insane. I do think that.
It is, and I'm going to give you that she is, not, she's not 100% normal. There is a little bit, funny stuff going on in the head, but there is still somewhat of a guilt inside her, but she's able to very easily push it aside. But you could just see the way she's acting, the way she looks, that's the guilt there where it's still kind of nagging at her, but she's like able to justify it.
And I looked at that as, what you're looking at as guilt, I looked at it as pleading. Like she was extending the olive branch, using this as an opportunity to say, hey, look, we're doing the same thing. Because at this point, I'm convinced she found the gun and she's like, finally, I can confront him. My Apollo, we can have an honest talk about this and what we're trying to do together. Yeah. So I looked at it more as a longing, more as a pleading than as a guilt. But I can see why you saw it that way. So that's what I'm saying. I think it's an interesting thing where I'm not like saying, geez, dude, that wasn't in the book, but I think we read this very differently, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying completely. So it's one of those things where I think it's our experiences, that are going to make us look at this a little bit differently.
Because I look at her as criminally insane here, and I don't see her as criminally insane yet.
By the end of the book, she is. But at this point in time, I think they still could reach her. I think she would do some time in a sanitarium. She would learn that she would get to recognize that this was not the right thing to do, and they could still reach her. If Harvey was there, if her Apollo was there, he could pull her back. Harvey could pull her back if those two went away.
My opinion is they would have to reach her and convince her this was wrong. I don't think in this point in time she knows that. And I think that's the difference. Yeah,
you still have to work at it, but there is still the chance.
I do agree that there might be an opportunity here to maybe reach her.
Yeah.
But and Harvey might be the key to that. But boy.
Yeah. Once everything happens to Harvey,
there's a line here with her that I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's a very deep character in this. What is interesting here also is that Harvey says he brings home evidence all the time, yet she's confused by that. What do you think the gun is there for? Do you think it's because of the recent events with the Joker? Do you think it's... What do you think? Is it, what has he got that gun there for?
Part of me was wondering something.
Okay.
What if Harvey didn't bring the gun there? What if she forgot that that's her gun? And Harvey was right there just covering for her.
Wow. What if Harvey knew all along?
Yeah. Because there's evidence later on we see that Harvey knows.
Oh, yeah.
What if this was his first clue that it was her, and that was her gun all along? Now, that theory would go more heavily towards your theory than mine, that she's right now insane. Mm-hmm. Because a sane person wouldn't forget that, oh, yeah, that's my gun. Right. But, a criminally insane person could very easily, and going all along your thing where she wants to confront Harvey, she wants to get Harvey to admit what he's doing, so she would forget that that's her gun. That was her gun that she was using.
It would also explain a lot why he seemed more interested in hunting down Falcone than Holiday.
Right.
Because that's an interesting subtext with that as well. I never read it that way, but I could see that being an element to this.
Yeah.
Because you're right, at the end he does reveal that he knew that there were two
Holidays.
And they still didn't get it.
And he also knew who the second, he knew it was her, too.
Yeah.
And it was like, but so what if that was the thing I was thinking, what if that was her gun? That would be kind of a neat twist.
Part of me was thinking of recent events with the Joker with all this as driving him, but wow, that is a really interesting twist there. He brought it home for protection or something, but wow, that's totally... Because he never told her about that.
Yeah.
When Batman is in the bar searching for info, I did like the visual distinction on his costume in the daylight. More blue is shown, and while he still looks imposing, there's a definite more of a human look to him, not as shadowy, not as dark. It matched his internal dialogue nicely. The cowards are more willing to try something at this moment.
But I tell you had to laugh, though, when the guy took the swing. Like, come on. It's still Batman, dude. Right. Come on. You think you still have a chance? Ugh.
The dialogue with the Riddler was really fantastic. Was that really Holiday with the Riddler? Did the Romans set that up? And I'm going through, these are some questions Riddler was asking himself. Did the Romans set that up to cover his own tracks? When the Riddler said yes and no to Holiday, did the Riddler know about the dual nature of Holiday at that point? Or, was he looking at, I still think it's Carmine, but... Because you figure he would have seen Alberto. So was he thinking that Dad had Alberto as a hitman? I don't know.
Yeah, see,
you take a look at his dialogue there. He was clearly not he was revealing things, but he was very vague on it. Like, he was still trying to figure it out. He also was one, when you think about the, in a world where control is so important, Carmine's behavior would be put under a microscope. And it is interesting to sit there and say, okay, I originally thought it was a woman, but then I'm faced with this. So is he still thinking that it was a woman and now a man? Does the Riddler know that there's a dual nature to this? I don't know. It's interesting because he was the one that brought up in our storytelling. So I think both of them, though, were paralleling each other in their exploration, so I think Bruce saw that possibility as well. But he was the one that started looking at the women, like Catwoman and, that type of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, Riddler is one that really... I love this sequence because it once again just shows that there is some intelligence behind the craziness.
Oh, yeah.
And I like seeing that about him. And as he's just throwing out there that, the reason he's still alive is because Falcone wanted people to know that, that he's looking into who is, Holiday.
But the subtext there, what I got out of that was he was implying that he's starting to think that Falcone was covering something up.
Yeah. See, I think...
as a possibility, because he did accuse Falcone, and I don't think that was a throwaway.
What I think is, whoever shot at him, he never got a look at their face.
Okay.
Shadowy or whatever.
But thinks he's alive to cover?
But he thinks that's why he said yes and no. Yes, when he was sitting there with Falcone, that's when he saw Holiday. No, when the person who was shooting at him. He was thinking probably that was just one of his hired thugs, one of his goons.
I could buy into that.
And even maybe he may have even seen his son's face in that time, but his whole mindset, he wasn't thinking that it was his son. Mm-hmm. I think that he was thinking it was all, and that's my gut. That's my gut on reading regular. This sequencing, I actually had to reread multiple times, as well as go back to that April Fool's episode and just reread that, just to really get a grasp of what he's saying. What'd I say? Episode, issue. Come on.
We have episodes. Comics have issues. Well, we have issues.
Well, I got my issues.
I've clearly got issues, yeah. But the fact that we even went on, the fact that I even called you on that, I have issues. But that's beside the point. Oh, I wouldn't. What would I be here for if I didn't? But when I was talking about that control again, because Carmine's behavior, he's been working with the Riddler, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter. And Carla's calling him on this. Why not their more trusted allies? What is driving this? Is Carla seeing this behavior as a lack of control or confidence in their own organization? She more worried about these unpredictable elements, making Carmine more untouchable, because you can't get a handle on where to get him, seeing as the Vitti family obviously wants a bid for his power as well. There's a lot of reasons why she might be becoming more concerned by variables. You want to be able to control situations and jump at opportunities, but in this world, it's hard to know what is that going to look like because you can't predict the unpredictable.
She's also thinking he could possibly be Holiday. He could be behind this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's really, I think, kind of throwing her off because she knows, if he's Holiday, he's willing to kill family.
Right.
And she knows she's already not in the best of graces, with him, that, killing her wouldn't be a big deal to him.
And we do see that she's continuing to pursue who is Holiday.
Right. Because that was her son.
Right.
She's got to find out. She needs to know who did this because, it's a matter of vengeance.
It's interesting. Jim Gordon patting down Maroni one last time in his cell shows that he understands just how corrupt the city is. I don't think he would have been shocked to find something on him. Unfortunately, we learn how right he was later. But I just thought that moment was good for. It shows how good and by the book he is and how well he knows the city he works in. This is somebody who's been in this force for a while. There's no games here. No, that possibility's there.
How good is the Weasel, though, that he waited until after the pat-down to pass him this thing? That shows he knows what he's doing as well.
Again, another moment to pound a Vernon.
Oh, yeah.
I did like that when Fields is handed the ulcer medicine, when he hands that to Maroni, we see that Maroni is almost deciding at that moment what action to take. That last panel with him, you could see the wheels turning. Did you catch that from that?
Yeah, he's still debating about whether he's going to do the right thing or whether he's going to do the right thing.
Right, because these relationships are tentative. We have no doubt that he would kill Falcone in an instant, but he has to decide which move is better for him at that moment. Reputation's a big deal, and sticking with the mob over turning squealer is probably the motivation there. Yeah, I think that's one of the motivating moments. The charts and pictures in the courtroom scene remind me so much of Godfather 2. Yeah. And I really liked that. What do you think Falcone's birthday wish was? To be done with Dent, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Come on, it's got to be the wish, because Dent is the thorn in his side. Dent, he thinks Dent is Holiday.
Yeah, he thinks it's a chance for that.
This is the end of it all. But I laugh because, he's thinking this is the end of it, and really this was the beginning of the pain.
Oh, absolutely.
And I tell you, we've talked about the artwork, but I loved how these sequences played out, how they were going back and forth from the courtroom scene to the birthday scene, the courtroom scene to the birthday scene. That was just beautiful layout, beautiful planning. That added
well, it
to
showed
it
because it was Falcone's plan being put into motion.
Yeah.
And, we saw that in Godfather many times. When the kills were going on.
Oh, yeah, when Michael was just cleaning house.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
They'd go from one thing.
And you'd flash to him, with family and things. I really liked those parallels there, and it worked really well in this comic.
Yeah.
Very cinematic, again. Yeah. This did read like a movie. Yes,
this definitely could have been adapted to being a movie. It would have been a wonderful movie.
To
some levels it was.
Yeah, because a lot of this was in Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
Yeah, but they could have taken this, put it down, and said, okay, here's a script.
Yeah.
And just played this out exactly,
This is where, when they originally talked about these direct-to-DVD releases, and, they were originally pitched as being direct comic adaptations. The problem, I think, with the direct comic adaptations is unless you do all of it,
you miss something.
Yes, absolutely. New Frontier, I think, worked because what they did was they took out the elements that weren't the Justice League story and made it into a good Justice League film.
Right.
Whereas New Frontier is a decent. You read the book, and please, anybody if you've seen that DVD, do yourself a favor and read the original source material because there's a completely different story in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking the DVD. I really liked it, but to me, to really understand that story, to really get the full impact of that story, you have to read the work because that whole losers segment, especially in the beginning, was to me some just brilliant. It does have a much more whole universe feel to it. But I think that to me is when those originally pitched, like I wanted to see that Titan story brought to life.
Yeah, the Judas contract.
Judas contract. But I think something would have been lost doing it in 90 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like the Superman Doomsday. It did lose. It was a good movie and it was a good DVD and it was enjoyable. But it wasn't as good as the original material. That original material, still to me is epic. It's still something. When I read that and I reread it, I'm like, it's something.
I've liked all of them.
Yeah,
I think they've all been good because it's great to have good, and I think. I've heard a lot of criticism about those, but it's like if you look back through comic animation, it's been hit or miss. You've had some good efforts. You've had some great efforts, not just animation, even films. But you've had stuff that's been really piss poor and lackluster as well in there. These have all been good. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Superman Doomsday, I'm totally glad I purchased it. It will be something I'll watch over and over again. I will agree, though, 100% with what you're saying, that there's something, especially when you see, a great example to me, Wonder Woman. The original story in Wonder Woman worked so well for me because it was crafted for that format.
Yeah.
And like this Green Lantern, First Flight, I think that's what it's called, right? First Flight?
Yeah.
It's coming out later. It's coming out later this month. I'm really excited for this because that looks to also be a completely original story crafted for this medium. I think that is going to just be great because of that. And I think that little slight tweak, that little slight difference is a difference between it being a good one and a great one.
Yeah.
The Wonder Woman one was a great one. Like I have that on my iPod because it came with a digital copy. I've watched it multiple times. So I would love to see this adapted. Yes, but I want to see the whole thing, otherwise you lose something. Because what could you cut out of this?
Yeah, you couldn't cut anything. And you could
not to have the debates we're having.
Yeah, you could not get this in 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. This would be a Dark Knight of the direct to DVDs. A 3.5 hour monster that you would have to have all of the stuff.
Or
in
two
there.
of them.
Yeah,
just do two. That'd be part one.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, it would be. It would be great. Maroni's admitting to the crimes, but Den is starting to show obvious frustration. He needs Maroni to point to Falcone as the boss, and he just isn't going there. The intense coughing to cover his need for the medicine, and then Bruce in disguise, catching that he is heading in a bad direction, knowing like, hey, something's wrong, this isn't right. Very gripping drama. We've seen this a lot in storytelling, the birth of Two-Face. But when it's built up like this, it feels so powerful. This is why retelling works in comics, why sometimes it's okay to retell an origin. Build upon what's already there, what worked, and add to the story. Increase the level of understanding of what's really going on there. And that's what's really great. Good retelling will do this, and I really liked it. I've read a number of Two-Face origins that I've really, really enjoyed. This is one of my favorite ones, though. Maroni not only throws acid in the face of Dent, but he uses this moment to gain some power as well. Reputation, again, of doing this in the face of everything surrounding him and the verbal repartee that he's throwing out there. I got you, Dent. I got to, that's publicly going to be out there. This is going to increase his stock because he did this in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So this, again, puts him up on a different level.
And this is a very public just action against it. It's, sometimes, when people will go and they'll want someone dead, nice silent thing, body disappears, done.
Right.
But sometimes you need that bloody body sitting on the sidewalk where someone just walks right up to them, bam, puts a bullet in their head and drops them. You want people to see that power. And right there, he is showing that I am in the courtroom. I am surrounded by all these marshals, surrounded by all these police departments, and I still got to him. That's power. That's fear. That is just strength of who he is, what he is. And this is just a reaffirmation of the power that organized crime has. Yeah, the freaks and the misfits have some, super freaky, funky stuff they can do, but they don't have this level of power.
Right.
They can't get to you where you least expect it. They can't get to you where you're comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And that was just such a beautiful hit. On so many different levels that it was a perfect hit. You're talking the verbal abuse is one thing, but it was just the whole, future, what's going to happen with the next DA. Like we saw with when Kate's taken over as the Kate Spencer's taken over as the DA, people were commenting, asked her about the fact that she's going to Gotham, where the DA does not have a long life expectancy. Mm-hmm. Right here is a definite statement about that, where you have examples that they're able to pull from. So future DAs are going to have that same thing.
Power.
It's you tell a DA, hey, you're going to come after me, or you're going to be another Harvey Dent.
Well, and why is the police department so corrupt? Again, this is power. This, breeds that corruption. Vernon slinking out of the courtroom like the little weasel that he is. Great stuff. Shows that he's scared of the world that he's tumbled into. Even though, he clearly caused this, he doesn't feel comfortable watching the results. The shot of the single eye was really important because I think that visual is the birth of the full awakening of the dark side of that personality. Subconsciously, it was there before. I think we talked about that. Yeah. There was elements of that there, but this is where it really hit. Very dramatic, that shot of that eye.
Yeah, and I loved how, as he's throwing the acid, they're blowing out the candles of the cake.
Yes.
That was perfect timing. As we talked about that, how going back and forth, that was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. If they could have saved his face, do you think that he would have went down the same path at this stage?
No. Two-Face, you said it right there with that single eye.
What I'm saying, though, is after that, we saw the eye pop opening. If they could have, if he went to the hospital after that moment.
And if they would have had some miracle thing and cured him, there still would have been Two-Face.
That's what I'm asking. I'm talking about that pivotal moment.
Yeah, that pivotal moment. Mm-hmm. And anytime Harvey looked in the mirror, even though his face was perfect, he would still see that scar.
And feel the pain.
He would still feel the pain.
The screams were the key.
Yeah.
They kept talking about those screams.
Because if you think about face-to-face, when after Harvey's cured, we see the rebirth of Two-Face.
Sure.
Two-Face, that right there, that was Harvey Dent with a clean face, a perfect face, but Two-Face was there under the surface. Two-Face was always there. And that's the whole strength of Two-Face, is that he's always been a part of Harvey. It's not just Harvey Dent, became Two-Face. No, Harvey Dent and Two-Face, they're always been there. Two-Face has always been in his psyche and part of who he is.
That is a great story, too. I really liked that kickoff 1 year later of Face to Face, where we got to see.
That was a very powerful Batman story as well. And it was a Two-Face story. I really dig, Joker makes a great villain, and I love Joker stories, and same thing with the Hush, but there's Two-Face is just, he gets these, this raw emotional type stories that if the right writer knows what they're doing with Two-Face, you deal with the duality of the character and, the duality of Harvey Dent and just the battle between the person who was the vigilante of justice, who was that fighter, the Apollo, that guy, the Golden Boy who's going to save Gotham City, slips into that darkness.
No Man's Land with Renee and Harvey. Did
Yeah.
you read? Did you ever read all of No Man's Land?
Yes, I have. And
Great two-face relationship going on there with that particular story and how that worked out as well. That's another great example of it. I do think that this telling shows us that this stuff was already in there, but it's spent. I think Harvey would have head down a path similar to this if he stayed into Gotham. This just sped the process.
Oh, yeah.
Because we saw him already sinking to this level.
Yeah, we would have seen...
Unless something positive happened. He would have needed something major like Falcone goes away, or he needed that moment, and he would have never gotten it.
Yeah, if he would have gotten that and he and Gilda would have left, I think we would have seen a completely different Harvey Dent. But, it's not meant to be.
The natural assumption that he died versus escaping was...
I tell you,
that fit, because why would those three ever think in a million years he would do that?
I laughed my head off when I first read that. He's like, he's gone. I'm like, okay, she now has a legal right to kill that doctor. Just telling her, he could have worded it so many different ways. I don't know how to tell you this, but your husband has disappeared. Your husband has left. No, he says gone. First thing she's thinking. Now, I do give him a little bit of leeway because he did have the scalpel in his back. Yeah. So that would maybe cut down on his rationale, but still,
and he really needed to get, he should have been a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah, he should have, come on, take the pain a little bit. Right. Don't tell someone they're gone,
Mm-hmm. I do love that he still had the wherewithal to correct himself with a scalpel. I would be, if I got a scalpel in my back, first of all, I'm not going to be concerned with telling you about your husband. Yeah. I'm going to be like, there's a scalpel in my back. Get help. So, I liked that. I'll give him a little leeway because he was even concerned to tell them anything first.
And the fact that he wasn't screaming in pain or something, I got to give the doc, and I'm going to take, I'm going to take back what I said just because the man, if someone stabbed me in the back with a scalpel.
Because that was in the spine.
Yeah. The first thing that out of my mouth would not have been, well, let me tell Mrs. Dent what happened.
Get
the first
me help.
Yeah. First thing would have rhymed with Mother Trucker. Okay.
Get me help.
That's at one point in time when it's acceptable to say those words.
Yeah. Dude with the burn off face is crazy. Get me help. That would have been the case here, Of course, Holiday has to strike again, and this time it's at the coroner's office. Carla's getting very close to the truth. And besides her son, I liked that we saw Alberto's file was the second from the front. Conceivably, she would have seen that first.
Yeah.
So she was already onto it. I think when she got shot, that was the file she had in her hand. So there was an interesting ending to this particular chapter.
Holy caffeine!
Nice.
Chapter 12, Labor Day. This is the penultimate chapter of this particular series. The cover of what to me is a cracked mirror and our first glimpse into what Harvey saw his first time. Is that how you took that?
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I know.
The inner dialogue about Harvey snapping was great. I think Bruce was seeing glimpses all along, which is why his friend was a suspect. But I do like that he's still in denial here. At first, the Solomon Grundy thing looks like a silly moment, but as Harvey recites his own version of the poem, the concept of rebirth and living two lives, this Gemini becoming the personification of dual lives, Cyrus Gold's reincarnation almost bringing him to a twisted understanding of himself and where he's going to go from here. Wow.
Yeah, I really dig that.
I did too.
The more I'm seeing of Solomon Grundy in the Bat universe, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of neat because I always saw him as a Superman villain. Mm-hmm. And I like him in this universe. I was sitting there, I read it, I was like, that's kind of cool. I reread it again, and it was one of those things where it's a stretch of panels that you read it multiple times, you can get a better grip and understanding. Because as you said, it seemed like initially it was just the first kind of funny read, but no, this is more...
As the panels continued, you start to realize, wow, this is pretty deep.
Yeah.
Bruce and Jim's war of words was really good. Jim would be mad. The evidence points at Harvey. He trusts Batman. Why didn't he tell him? Bruce refuses to believe it, and there is some truth to it. The evidence may point at Harvey, but the evidence also pointed to him having some deep connection to Falcone.
Yeah.
That wasn't true, so why does this have to be? And I do like that denial on a personal level makes sense as well.
Yeah, and I really digged when they're going back and forth. And he's like, "How long did you know? How long?"
Yeah.
It was just, that for me was just a very passionate, powerful scene because we talked about earlier how
it's a betrayal. On
you have to have that trust. You have to have that open communication. You have to know that this is your partner, this is your friend, this is more than just vigilante and police commissioner. These are they're both working this case together. Granted, they look at it differently. They approach it differently, and in the end, they ultimately will have a different outcome. But they're still partners in this. This is you have to have that. It's betrayal. You have to have that trust, and this is a little crink in the armor between these two. And later on, we see
chink even. I'm being a putz.
You are being a putz. Crink, chink.
It's the chunk.
I know.
It's the chunk in the armor.
Yeah,
it's
the chunk.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Okay, it's the whatnot of the armor.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
At least it shows I do listen to you.
Yes, I know. I appreciate it. Hey, at least someone is listening to me.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, later on, we're going to see a really crucial moment between these two where it's, once again, it's that whole trust in the relationship where, and it's good to see that it's still a solid there. It's still that trust between the two of them.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the promise is very important because even though Harvey lost sight of things, there's truth to what Bruce is saying. I believe in Harvey Dent. Belief in a better future for Gotham is what drives him. Belief is what keeps him going. He has to believe that he can be an instrument of change. He has to look for that hope in others. Looking at Harvey, okay, this is somebody who's ideally, I can work with him. We can inspire each other. He can operate in a way that I can't. The two of us together, it's just a nice building. I loved the shot of the shadow of the bat over Gordon. Just a well-produced art piece there as he walked away. The confrontation between Batman and Falcone. Now, why would Bruce go to him to find Dent? Why do you think did that make sense to you?
Well, that was something I was trying to figure out exactly why. And part of me was theorizing that he was thinking Falcone was behind it all.
And he took him?
You know how, like, with...
so he's still in denial and thinking that Dent didn't stab the guy because Scalpel Boy never said anything?
Right. He's still thinking that Falcone has done all of this.
That makes sense to me.
And that's a way for him to prove his friend's innocent because he still wants to believe Harvey's innocent. Mm-hmm. And it's this confrontation where he's talking to this guy that he realizes, that he's not... that Falcone isn't behind this. He's now realizing that it is something else, someone else going on.
So you're basically saying the doctor picked a bad time to man up and not talk about his pain.
Yeah,
Would have been a little reveal. Hey, Harvey Dent stabbed me in the back, folks.
Yeah. Well, hey, and once again, I'm going to defend the doc. Yeah, I'm going to defend him because, he's probably thinking in his head, it's very obvious who stabbed me. There was a maniac with half a burned face in the room. I've been stabbed in the back. Uh-huh. He's probably thinking...
Although the world's greatest detective's over talking to Falcone from what you're saying because he thinks Falcone did it, or his goons.
Well, hey, I'm just saying, these are theories.
I'm saying maybe, in the future...
Hypotheses.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of this is if you ever have a scalpel in your back, make sure to tell people who put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely want to do that. Or if you ever been shot or ever been poisoned, you got to make sure you get that out first. Don't go into your long soliloquy about if I only having say who did it, and then go into your speech because ultimately
I'm leaving you my record collection. Yeah, that's not important at that moment. It really is not. No,
because ultimately
people will divvy up your stuff on your own.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Just say who did it.
Yeah.
Say who did it. And like if your husband didn't do it or your wife didn't do it, don't call for them for help. Don't call to them for help. Say who actually killed you, because that got the Harrison Ford movie, Fugitive, got him in trouble. Because the wife was calling to him for help, and everyone's like, "Who did this?" And she's calling out to the husbands for help, and everyone's like, "Oh, she said the husband did it." No, she was saying help.
Yeah, and it's one of those moments too. You got to be sure, like, say a person too. Don't use that moment to use metaphors. It was the corruption of the city that did me in. No. We want a name. Yeah. We know the city's corrupt and all that stuff. We don't need any of that. Tell us all of it. Falcone's wrong here. The police would have found Holiday sooner if they didn't keep getting distracted by the nonsense he was causing, especially with Batman's rogues, because he's blaming Bruce here, and that's not true. Falcone is directly responsible for this long Halloween stretching out as long as it did. He kept putting roadblocks into place, not directly with that intention, but his obsessions and his moments for gaining power got in the way of all this. In this exploration, multiple conversations were cut short that might have broken the case directly due to things Falcone was doing.
Yeah.
Many of those were cut short because Ivy, Scarecrow, and that kind of stuff. The Joker is also, though, that whole sequence was directly responsible for some of this as well. Do you think Falcone didn't tell Sophia because he wanted Batman to catch Dent, catch Holiday, save face, or, because he didn't want to show weakness to the Bat and have her see that or know about that?
I think it's probably a combination of multiple stuff. I think one of the big things was he didn't want to save face. He wanted to save face because he didn't want to look like he was getting manhandled by the Bat. Oh, I just slipped. It's nothing. But there could have been something where, he wants the Bat to go out there and do his thing, but I don't know. It's tough to deal with, to figure out what he's thinking, because it's hard to get in the head of, this mob boss. And they call him even, it's funny, you call him a mob boss. He's not even a mob boss. He is also one of those evolutionary characters. He has his old school traditional style, but he's now starting to incorporate the freaks into it. He's now trying to figure out a way to use them as muscle, for his organization.
Well, he's trying to control the uncontrollable.
Right.
So I agree with you in that he's evolutionary in the sense that he's at least trying to work with them on some level. But I think that he's still old school and that he thinks that there's some way to control them and to keep them down using his old intimidation tactics. And
he learns quickly.
Yeah. Bruce is frustrated. Falcone hit him hard, blaming him. Catwoman, wrong place, wrong time. He wants to know why she is involved. He knows there's something deeper. She's been playing her own game of secrets. I think under different circumstances, she would have revealed all. I think we saw a couple opportunities pass in this storytelling where if the conversation between the two of them went differently, she may have told him everything.
Yeah.
Those sequences are some of my favorite because of the regular mood changes, from rage to calm, from introspective to lashing out, visually in the art. The eyes tell a lot about her feelings for him, but also the pain that she hides. Those emotions and the connections that I had with those this is a very smart piece of art, this whole production that they put together with Long Halloween. And there was a lot being told visually as well as through the dialogue. And I really liked seeing that emotion.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head with the eyes.
Yeah,
especially with her. You see some of the earlier stuff where she's kind of very wide-eyed, very much, there's a love there.
Yeah,
and then just with this sequence when he's grabbing her, like, you're hurting me. And she has that little bit of, okay, buddy, we're about to throw down hardcore now. I'm about to, open up a can of cat,
It's also a different kind of emotional hurt there as well, though, because this is somebody that she trusts. And, I think we're all at the point where we do stupid things when we're angry and you cross a line you don't intend to. Because was he trying to hurt her? Nah.
But yeah, he was feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
He was feeling the stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that we talk about
because he wasn't mad at her.
Yeah, we talk about the what ifs. It's funny. And this is something goofy that just kind of popped in my head now. What if, like, Bruce had taken that point in time to actually express his emotions, express his feelings, saying, hey, this is getting to me, and if she had been the type of person that he could have confided in. Like, we've seen some...
But he won't even do that with Alfred.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. What if? Like, with Ollie and Dinah, we've seen those two blow up, explode, and then Ollie go, hey, I was an idiot. I'm under a lot of, we've seen those two work through. What if Bruce and Selina had ever had those type of moments where they could have that open and honest exchange of...
Well, they'd be different people.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the nice things about reading different characters is that you can get... Then it helps you when you read that comparison like an Ollie and Dinah in a similar moment to a Bruce and Selina. You can take a look at them and say, wow, that pivotal moment was one where Bruce and Selina could have made a major breakthrough as a couple.
Yeah.
And they could have gone somewhere, and it passed because they're both screwed up. Him more than her there.
Oh, yeah.
She's reaching out big time in both personas.
Yeah, I think I think she's the more stable of the two of them.
Yeah. I agree to a certain extent. Other than the meowing,
there's nothing wrong with an occasional meow.
no, there really isn't. Sometimes you got to let it
as
out.
long as it's at the right time.
Here is a major clue for us in the reveal: the vice having the shavings.
Yeah.
It wasn't Harvey, but wow, it works on both levels. Gilda's using her husband's defense, and I think she assumes the shavings were from him, but in reality, they were still there from her.
Yeah.
And it's Labor Day, and he still eludes you, doesn't she? Calendar Man here. Bruce is wondering if Calendar Man somehow escaped. The clues don't add up. For a detective, has to be frustrating. The clues can't add up unless you are willing to see that Holiday was two people. And they aren't. There's nothing that's making them make that jump.
Yeah, no, I'm still irked at myself for not. I'm like,
That's why I don't feel at any point in time that anybody's an idiot in this story.
Yeah, I know.
Because I see multiple points where the breakthrough could have happened, and because of circumstance, they didn't get to it. So they aren't idiots. They were actually getting to that point. They were right on the edge. We as readers could go along with it. We're like, no, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes, just finish that tack. That would have been great. Maroney is something that Holiday wants, and Bruce is assuming that it's Dead who wants to get to him for revenge, but in reality, the Calendar Man knows who's coming.
Yeah.
Jim Gordon pointing out that heeding the advice of one madman to catch another is, it's really a solid point that he's trying to make there, because it's true. Calendar Man could have told them more information, because I firmly feel Calendar Man knows a lot more about this. Could have pointed out what was really going to happen here, and it was holding back, kind of like the Riddler. His own psychoses were kind of holding back him from revealing. Yeah,
well, Calendar Man's becoming obsolete.
Right.
Holiday is taking over as the calendar-themed supervillain.
And he can't be ignored. It's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, so he's got to, hold back a little bit and say, because Calendar Man knew that there's 2 Holiday killers.
Absolutely.
He probably knew that Harvey Dent's, he probably knew who the identity of the 2 were as well. And I dig that. I like seeing these villains who have these issues, who have these little psychoses that, a normal person would say, hey, this is what's going on. Or here's the thing, a thug, a criminal who had some information on another job may give up the information for a better treatment or for a lesser sentence.
Right.
Whereas this guy isn't even remotely thinking, let's make a deal.
No.
Because that's not who he is. He is the insane type.
The crazy thing about that, too, is he knows because he didn't have the distractions that the others did. His own obsession with Holiday meant that he could devote nothing but the time to analyzing the clues and reaching that point. They haven't been able to do that. None of them have, because there have been too many other distractions in the corrupt nature of Gotham. Maroney is being moved, but it's interesting that he taunts Gordon because of the slugs he took. Their world is about coming from a position of power, showing no fear. To Gordon is what he needs to keep his illusion of confidence. Holiday finally reveals himself, shooting Maroney and his escort. He turns the gun on Gordon, and the flashlight reveals Alberto. Now, again, so you're thinking the Riddler didn't see this?
Yeah, see, part of me was thinking that the Riddler didn't see the face, because he stuck to the shadows, or if he did see the face, he saw Alberto and didn't think it.
Dad. Yeah.
And didn't think it, he was thinking that it wasn't, he was just a hired gun, a hired thug.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
I think that's why he naturally assumed.
Yeah, so I'm leaning that he may not have seen the face, or he may have.
Works for both. And actually, I see it your way too, because if he didn't see the face, the yes and no thing would work as well. So either way, it works. Maroney was the Labor Day murder as we kick into the final chapter, and that was an interesting way to end off this particular chapter.
Yeah, that was really I want to say the first real big cliffhanger that led into the others. The others had endings for the holidays. Usually someone died. This was a direct, ending page, first page. There was with the other ones. There's always a gag, a lag between the two.
I remember because this was being released over 13 months. I remember reading this and going back and rereading all the issues to try and get the clues. And I'm like, wow, it makes sense on New Year's. But I was having trouble placing everything. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. And you do see it in this issue that from when he vanishes straight on through, everything makes sense for Alberto.
Yeah, and I tell you, when I saw that, when I read that final thing where we were seeing Alberto, I smacked myself in the head and said, oh my God, Alberto. And I was like looking at the clues saying, oh, okay, you know, and I still was completely ignoring the he, she.
Right.
You know, and I was still, I don't know why I was just I don't know if I was just missing it or if I was just, I don't know, but it was just, I had that whole 100% locked into Harvey Dent completely went to 100% locked into Alberto.
Right.
And it just, oh, man.
And I agree with you. I still didn't have that.
Yeah.
Now, Chapter 13, Punishment, the last Halloween chapter, we've come full circle. The Two-Faced Pumpkin, very nice and disgusting in the opening.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And it was funny. I'm going to admit being an idiot here. I didn't realize it was a Two-Faced Pumpkin until like the second read-through. I just saw it was like a pumpkin. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. The last Halloween. And then after I went through a second time.
It looks like a decomposed pumpkin.
Yeah, I didn't think.
To signify it's been the end of this horrible nightmare, whereas in the beginning everything was a little bit more bright. And
yeah, it didn't dawn on me that it was a Two-Faced Pumpkin until like the second read-through. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Holiday's escort gets back up in time to save Gordon. Now, here's an interesting thing. Alberto takes full credit for being Holiday. Is it his need to be noticed to accomplish something? Because in earlier chapters, his father treats him like he's insignificant. Basically a stay out of the room, son, the big boys are talking kind of situation. As Holiday has controlled Gotham in a way that even his father couldn't. And that's saying a lot. It's interesting to me that the son is a symbol of transition from this like mob family to the costumed freaks, or, you know, the mentally deranged freaks, whatever you want to call it. His son went through that transition, and Dent did as well. Both snapped due to Gotham's corruption, but are also symbols of where crime and power in Gotham are heading. And it is interesting to see these two, they're transition people, showing that, you know, I think that's a part of this story that it's an interesting subtext here.
Yeah, it's definitely why he took full credit was, you know, just for the recognition, just for the attention, you know, look at me, Daddy, this is what I'm doing. And it's funny because, I'm going to say he's a little bit insane there. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I would say Harvey and some of the other people in Arkham are probably worse off than he is. Well, for him, I think part of it was a mind game. Part of it, I don't want to say he's not criminally insane, but I think he knew right from wrong. He knew what he was doing. He knew killing and taking a life. Whereas, like someone like Gilda, and sometimes even Harvey a little bit, there is that whole, you know, absence of right and wrong. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew he was taking a life, and he was doing it for the sole purpose of getting the attention of his father. He's less, for me, in my mind, he's less likely or less someone who should be in Arkham. He shouldn't be in Arkham. He should be more in Blackgate. He should be in prison. He should have gone to the gas chamber. He should have been executed because he should have been deemed fit to stand trial because he knew exactly what he was doing. He was killing these people, and he was intentionally doing it to get the attention of his father.
But he started on his birthday and then went every holiday afterwards because he has major daddy. There is a psychosis to this guy. I agree with what you're saying. He is definitely more coherent. I look at him as a little bit more Riddler and almost, especially when you see him later. I mean, to fake your death as a part of a murder scheme, to go underground, like to then kill people month after month to get notice as Holiday, there's something way off about you. Because he's not doing it for financial gain. What is the gain in this? Other than to completely disrupt and cause chaos. Because what is his gain in this? What does he get out of it?
It's the attention. It's attention seeking. And
But do you think he would have, if he hadn't been caught, do you think he would have ever told Dad?
I don't think so.
I think it was enough for him to know that he was doing all this.
Yeah, see, you're saying that, and I'm like leaning more to. As I said, it's a tough line for me to say whether he is criminally insane or not, whether he should be in Arkham or he should have been executed. I always have issues with the insane
I agree with you.
And he's
so
one I would actually, if I was an attorney, if I was a prosecutor,
he's a fine line.
I would fight this one. This is one where I would say, you know what, we got a shot here. We got a definite shot. We can say he was doing he was killing the competition. He was killing this to get favor with his father. He was doing, and that type of stuff. He killed himself. He faked his own death to cover for him because the police were there. And then when the coroner got wind of it, he killed the coroner and just they could lay out a really good case saying that no, he's not. He's crazy like a fox. He's not insane.
Well, see, and I guess my whole thing is, and I think we could go on for hours and debate on this one. But we're not going to go crazy into this, but my feeling of, why would you declare a person insane? Because you believe on some level there's a way to rehabilitate them, that there's some issue mentally that caused this behavior that you can somehow rehabilitate. You can somehow reach them. Otherwise, what's the point? Because to lock them up if they can't, like a Joker, and that is an interesting debate. Like the Joker, to lock him up in Arkham, you're never going to rehabilitate that guy.
And here's the thing: I'm not 100% certain on with the declaration of criminally insane, but my understanding of it is, if you are deemed that you lack the capacity to understand what you've done, to see the right from wrong with it, that's when you're deemed criminally insane because you're unfit to stand trial. Right. If you have somebody that you think could rehabilitate,
well, and jail's supposed to rehabilitate.
That's jail.
By its premise, jail's supposed to be a way to rehabilitate.
If there's a chance to rehabilitate somebody, they're not the criminally insane. They, maybe jail wouldn't be the best thing for them. You would do a different type of jail, so you would do a sanitarium type thing. But the criminally insane just, will never be able to stand trial.
The sad part, my buddy, Jim, worked as a corporal at the jail for many years, and then it was funny the amount of repeat offenders that he would have. And to me, that's the sad state of affairs. And I guess that's why I kind of think, well, geez, the purpose of the criminal insane should be, these people that can be. But no, I'm wrong on that. And you're right. That's really the definition of it. I think just because of being so close to it, because of hearing stories from him of what's gone on there, I'm like, well, no, there's so many repeat offenders. It's not rehabilitating. But I'm sure there are. I mean, there's definitely going to be people that have been. I'd be interested to see what the percentages of people that have actually been rehabilitated for their time in jail.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that there aren't, and I'm no insult to people that have come out and have gained something valuable and changed their life. But I do think I would love to see what those statistics are.
Yeah, the revolving door of justice is a very common thing in modern society, unfortunately. And I would say there's more repeat offenders based on the crime. With the people who do like the quote-unquote victimless crimes, the financial crimes, the stuff where it's not like a thumping somebody on the head and stealing their money. Those type of people, you have a lot of repeat offenders where it literally, I've had pulled up guys' rap sheets where you look, okay, they got arrested here, they got released here, they got arrested here, and it's literally right along just, they're out for maybe a month and then they're back in jail again for the exact same crime. There's some crimes out there though where the people, they got the chance where while they're inside they're actually able to be rehabilitated. Those are more of the circumstances behind why the person's doing it. If someone's got their back up against the wall, they have no other options and they have to do it, those are the people who can actually be rehabilitated. There are people who have all these opportunities out of the world and say, I'm not going to go with that. I'm not going to get a regular job. That's hard work. I'm going to go the easy way. I'm going to steal from this person. Those are the people who are less likely to be rehabilitated. It's, and also you got to look at, with their family, whether they have a support system, whether it's just the criminal justice system, or whether it's their family. There's a lot of factors in it. I'm going way off on a tangent here, but
it's interesting to me because I think one of the pivotal pieces of corruption in Gotham is we do see that revolving door of justice in both Arkham and the jails.
Yeah.
These are people that just keep coming back, and it seems our society isn't really geared, and it's not just in the jail system, it's not really geared to help people get a fresh start. We aren't really geared towards rehabilitating anybody and helping them with their specific issues. We usually deal with the consequences. We're never proactive. We're reactive.
It's reminding me
Not
of
never, but I mean...
This is reminding me of a story of something that actually happened in real life with me. We had a client who had a previous financial crimes. He had robbed the bank. And,
Okay.
And one of the tellers, he had robbed a different bank and came over to our bank, and one of the tellers who was waiting on him had been at the previous thing, and she recognized him. And this guy was out, and he paid his debt to society. He wasn't even like parole. He actually did the full time because in Ohio you have you don't get off for good behavior for bank robbery. So he did his full time, and the guy kind of recognized her. She recognized him. She started panicking, and he's like, "Hey, and it was I was security. I was the fraud investigator security for the bank, and he and I had a very lengthy chat. And he's like, "Hey, I'll never go back to that branch again. I don't want to scare." And he just didn't want us to kick him out of the bank because he was having trouble finding banks because he was trouble finding a bank that would actually take him because of his past. Right. And we let him stay in. I basically said, well, why don't we just try to avoid a situation? And he never went back into that branch, but he stayed in. He actually never gave me any problems. He actually was one of those rehabilitated stories, and It was actually kind of cool. Because you're mentioning like what's the percentages. Well, honestly, so he dawned on me that I was like, I knew a rehabilitated
stories
story.
Like that mean even more to me because I think it's very hard for people to rehabilitate themselves in those environments because I don't think the system always works. So I think it's very hard for the people that are trying to find hope to do it. So I mean, it's a great story because it's great to hear that. Yeah,
because he was actually a junkie who he was robbing the bank for.
So it's more of a pat on the back to him saying, hey, great job that you did it in this.
And that was one of the things he's like, when he and I had our little discussion, he's like, hey man, I was a junkie and that was just a fix, and it was just I got clean and sober, and so that's why we gave him the shot because he was actually working at it, but we had to deal with our teller who was freaking out because that guy ever walks into any branch she's in, she was because she just flashbacks to what happened. That's the whole post-traumatic stress, and it was a very difficult situation that. Underlining, there's this positive story of this guy getting his life together, but there is still that whole victims and
Bruce takes down Alberto, and the comparisons to the damage caused by the little gun to his parents shows us that the scars will always be with him. We all have fears and to some extent phobias. Events in our lives trigger them, and initial reminders will kick them off. I was thinking about you when I was coming back from camping at Put-in Bay. We crossed the Interbelt Bridge. And I was thinking about the fact that ODOT finally revealed the structural issues in the paper. Does this affect you all at work?
Well, I don't
have to go over that.
I don't go over the bridge when I'm driving. There was a period.
Is that a route that you normally would go though? If it was in
here's the way it works with the 90 bridge. The way it's set up, if I were to go, the route I go is a different overpass type bridge. It adds 3 minutes to the time. Now, my theory is 3 minutes is well worth the lack of stress I go over because I was actually confronting my fear. I was driving over the bridge. I was like, I'm doing this. And then I started reading all this stuff in the paper. I'm like, you idiots.
Because they sent you back.
Yeah. Oh,
you were trying self-rehabilitation.
I was trying self-rehabilitation.
This is your tiny gun.
Yeah. I'm like, this is my tiny gun. I'm now going the 490 route, adding 3 minutes to my time. Don't care because I'm not, driving across with the death grip on the wheel. Just breathe.
Were you wearing your Bridgeman costume or?
No. See, maybe I should put on my Bridgeman costume. Maybe that'll help.
Dun, dun, dun,
I'm Bridgeman.
I don't think I have any big phobias, but I have lots of little ones. Which would add up to a big phobia. Like in closed spaces, I'm not. There's certain situations where like I'll get kind of freaked out from it. Other times I'll be okay. Heights. And even the bridge, a great example. That bridge came to mind not because I was pointing the finger at you. when you're reading a paper that a bridge is structurally damaged and you're driving over it, that's going to affect anybody.
Yeah, it makes you think.
I'm not Evel Knievel. I'm not. My goal isn't to really jump anything. So those moments in this story felt very real to me. I felt like Bruce uses that to get up from taking those bullets to the chest, because even though he was wearing that vest, that's going to hurt, knock him down. He's going to be winded. Because those vests they're crafted to save your life, not for you to get up and be fighting.
And it was
Am I right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, those
the Kevlar, it really prevents the bullet from going in and
from penetrating,
hitting your thing, but it doesn't stop the concussion of the bullet
right.
hitting you, and that's the whole thing. Now, granted, it was a .22, which a .22 is a very, it's a small caliber gun. People have very easily survived 22 shots. But
this was a close range, multiple shots.
Yeah, even close range, multiple shot. But there was still that concussion. And
that's what I'm saying.
Him going back, that was a legitimate fallback, just because of the shots and all that. And now, did you realize who that was, the guard, from the very beginning, that it was Batman the whole time?
Yes.
See, that was the thing, and that was another thing I was kicking myself.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn there. I'm sure there's a lot of people who did. I think what cued me to that was the courtroom scene, and we saw him in disguise there. So I was already thinking Batman's got to be in disguise, because I was looking for him, and when I saw the size of that guy, that clued me in. I'm like, okay, that's Bruce.
Yeah, see, it completely didn't. I was actually thinking that maybe that was Harvey. And Bruce was in the shadows,
right?
Because when they first showed him going, I'm like, is that? I was thinking that was.
I could see that
Harvey,
as a possibility too.
But I didn't really think it was Batman. And then when he springs up, I'm like, oh, Jim, you're an idiot. And then once again, just more usage of that scene.
You know what? I will say one thing though. They threw me off when they shot him. When they shot him and he went down in that issue. When I first saw him, I remember when I initially read it through in the monthly issues. When I first saw him, I'm like, okay, there's Batman. But then when he got shot, I'm like, uh-oh, then where's Batman? So, yes and no. So I will say they swerved me completely. I remember my first read-through, the cliffhanger was like, all right, when's Batman going to show up?
Yeah. And I tell you, just,
I can't completely say that.
And we keep talking about pulling stuff to make the movies, with the Dark Knight, when Gordon was shot and when Gordon was killed, and he's actually in the driving the car with it has Harvey that the Joker's going after. Completely was thinking that scene when I saw this whole thing play out. I was like, oh, cool.
This is only the beginning. A year's worth of frustration, a year's worth of deaths. Wow, was the visual of him standing over Alberto in the disguise cool. It's funny how much Bruce and Harvey are alike in these moments. Bruce is willing to cross a line to stop this, but Gordon is what keeps him from that. If he didn't have Gordon as a friend, what would he have become in these early years? Not even just Gordon, but Alfred as well. Because, Alfred talked earlier about if I was a better parent to you. He was. I think these surrogate parents of Bruce have kept him Batman versus being Two-Face or something like that. Yeah. They're as much Bruce parents as his own, and they keep him on a fine line over this promise to keep his, because he really, realistically, we talk about people who could be locked up as criminally insane.
Yeah, he definitely
could be. Yeah,
there's a lot of
Batman
arguments.
is one of those issues where you can see why there's heroes who are uncomfortable by him at times. Although there's a lot of heroes you can probably argue some of that with as well.
And it's funny, like the heroes who know his background are a little bit more uncomfortable around him.
Yeah,
they've done when Flash Rebirth sort of started, and they showed Bruce interacting with Barry.
Yeah.
How, they both had very similar stuff. And, I think it was Barry made the comment, like, no wonder we're both messed up. And, and Bruce is like, oh, speak for yourself. Bruce doesn't see himself as messed up. It was just the motivation. It was just the beginning of the mission. And when I talked earlier about how the betrayal between these two, and you see right here is where you see the trust come back, though. This moment where he's just pounding on this little weasel, and it's Gordon who's able to back him down. Right. It's Gordon who's able to stop him. That's the level of trust. If if Bruce didn't have that respect, didn't have that trust for him, there's no way he would have stopped him. Physically, Bruce could have taken Gordon without batting an eye. And he was in that, that bloodlust mode where he was just hitting. And had Gordon taken a physical attack against him, he would have reacted and it would have been a natural defense.
And in his mind, to accomplish his goals, he must be willing to deal out the punishment. We're talking about rehabilitation. He's looking at there needs to be an example set to change people, to show them another way, to show them that good people cannot be hurt in Gotham. Right. There will be consequences. So, he even tells Gordon, then do what needs to be done. He wants him arrested. And in a city that corrupt, Bruce is aware that jail isn't necessarily permanent. Even going to court isn't necessarily permanent. I like that while you can make out the date on paper, when they show that newspaper for Holiday, the year is somewhat smeared. The story feels a bit out of time in its presentation. Not quite the present, but it does have elements that look like it, but also it's not quite the past. And don't get me wrong, it looks like it's 82 or 92 in that particular sequence. But the story still has a timeless element, so I kind of appreciated where the smear was.
Yeah, this story could have happened today.
Sure.
Very easily. Just boom, pop it in there.
When Alberto gets a visitor, he denies his name. He started a new life as Holiday when he made that leap. Bruce talks internally about the clues, and notice that he starts at Alberto faking his death. This is where it starts to make sense. So he blames himself for wasting time suspecting his friend Harvey, but still, you have to say that he doesn't realize that there's another killer before that, because those are the only things that add up. Because take a look at in that dialogue, he starts right at Holiday's disappearance and talks about the murders afterwards. He never goes back to what happened before in that dialogue there. Yeah. It's interesting that he starts at right where he becomes Holiday and doesn't realize that he's subconsciously doing that and that there's a reason to look back further.
Yeah, and I wonder, part of me wonders if Bruce knows who the second killer is. Yeah.
I can't see him
letting her walk. No. But then I'm wondering if he thinks Harvey did it before he became Two-Face. Maybe he's thinking
denial's still there.
Maybe he's thinking Harvey did it. And that's his way of protecting who his friend was, saying, Harvey Dent, Two-Face is the killer, not Harvey Dent. And he's trying to protect his friend.
Carmine is there to talk to his son about a plea bargain. He has enough power to get him off for one murder. But Alberto's not willing to give up Holiday, though. It's almost like he is giving up on his claim to fame. We talked about what would it take to get you to walk away. This would be his walking away. Yeah. Bruce couldn't do it. He can't do it. What a very twisted, dark difference here. But this is his mark on the world.
We talked about power of the mob and organized crime and in Gotham, the corrupt city. He's saying, just admit to the one, because that's the one that has the eyewitnesses. Right. Don't admit to the other stuff. I can take care of this. And I love the fact that the dad is still thinking.
Carmine needs to do that, too.
The dad is still thinking, hey, I can fix this. And that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of these mob, bosses, even real life. They still think they're so much above the law that they can take any problem and fix it. Right. Yeah, things aren't exactly smooth, but I can make it work. It's the whole power corrupts absolute, power corrupts absolutely. We're seeing that with Falcone right here, that he is just this supremely corrupt, powerful individual who, is looking at trying to figure out a way that he can make things work. He can fix it.
Holiday finally got Dad to notice him. And a father who doesn't even know his birthday. Alberto headed down this path on his own B-Day, Valentine's Day. Years of being ignored led to mental trauma. He was shunned by the family legacy. A son who wanted his father's acknowledgement, even to be offered a role that he could have turned down, but just that confidence from Dad. Generations of Falcones ran that family. Your dad, your dad's dad. Why were you ignoring me? Now he's bigger than them because he's part of this new generation, and that changes everything. The transition to a new kind of corruption in Gotham is a huge part of this piece. Now, there's that little blurb where it says the Roman knew. Do you believe that the Roman knew? I don't. I don't think Carmine knew that his son was Holiday.
I really don't think that Carmine knew. And I don't know why Bruce is still locked in onto that thinking. that Carmine knew. I don't think he at all had
I think
an
from
idea.
the conversations, looking at, he covered up his son's death, he somehow might have been in on the killings, because the killings do look like a mob war.
Yeah.
And that was crafted that way by Gilda.
Right.
Right from the beginning, it was meant to, and she actually, in her dialogue later, well, let's keep going, because we're going to get to a lot of this, because Gilda's house. Wow, how awkward would this be? I have been there with friends before, where it's a situation, I'm not saying it necessarily something like this, but you want to say the right thing, where you're in an awkward situation where they're in some kind of trouble or there's something going on in their lives, and you want to be the supportive friend, but you wind up sounding like a moron because you overthink things. And that's what happens a lot of times, where a lot of times you have to say, we're here for you.
Yeah.
But you always say the dumb thing that just, solid writing here because it felt suitably awkward. They have the life that Gilda wanted. Her worries that Gotham was going to be this kind of hell for them was true. She and Harvey did have the right idea wanting to end this and leave. Unfortunately, they stayed too long and their worries were true. How hard must that be to know your husband is alive but not to even know his state? Is he healthy physically? She's a bit off her rocker, so deep down she thinks she understands him. It's a tragedy in this story what this did to both of them. Calendar Man just can't get a break. The coin toss decides who Harvey frees, showing his own sense of justice is based on the law of the coin. Now, do you think Carmine is so upset because his son is going to the gas chamber? Potentially. Or because he defied him? Why do you think he wanted his son out of the family business? What do you think was going on? I mean, give me your thoughts on this. That's an interesting part of this.
Yeah, I think he's definitely upset because the son is defying him.
Right.
That's his
power
big
thing
anger.
again.
It's the power thing. Now, when he denied the son, not to be in the business, you could look at it as like how Don Corleone did with Michael. He wanted Michael to be the honest, the legitimate Senator Corleone, Dr. Corleone. Did
you get that impression here?
See, I don't think so. That's the one thing where I think that's what Falcone is saying when he met with his son. He's like, that's what I wanted for you. This is what I did for you. But in reality, you look at how Don Corleone treated Michael. Anytime Michael was there, it was always the Michael, and it was always that love and respect and just that there was that connect. Yeah, there was that hope. But it was just that great father-son relationship between the two. You don't see that at all with this. The fact that he didn't know his son's birthday is a huge thing. And add to the fact that his son was born on a major holiday, so it's not even like it's hard to remember. My personal thing was Falcone was so obsessed with keeping the power that he never looked at a replacement. Yeah. All he cared about was staying in power. Yeah. I think by setting up his son, that meant that he would have to potentially give over the power to his son, and he never wanted to do that. Yeah. He was immortal. In his mind, he was immortal. I don't think he cared what happened when he died. No. I think he knew he'd die someday and could really care less what the state of the family business was then. All he cares about is the power that he had while he was on this mortal plane. Yeah. Because you even look how he treats his daughter. Right. The exact same thing. There is no... he's not father knows best. It's this ain't Ward Cleaver we're talking about. So this is someone who's solely focused on his life. There's no wife or anything. It's I tell you, it's one of the cool things because we keep analyzing, comparing to. Godfather. There's some classic moments. But I do like that it veers off there. There is, he is not Don Corleone. No, and I like that. Yeah, so I love the homages. I mean, because there's blatant homages to the Godfather here. There's lines that are used, and I like that. I've got no problem with it. But I do like that there was the choice to veer off there, and that Carmine Falcone is a different man, and we're clearly seeing that in his relationship with his sons. Right. Or son and daughter in this case. Sorry. Well, I don't know. Sophia, son, daughter. You say tomato, I say tomato. The Joker gas kicks in, and it's like a good horror movie. The walk down the corridor is often more suspenseful and scary than the reveal because it builds the mental worry. But that 2-page spread of the villains, the ultimate transition piece, it forever marks the changeover in Gotham because now the freaks know. Harvey was an agent of change in Gotham. He's like the coin toss.
He could have changed it for the better, but circumstances forced him to be the transition for the worse because in many ways he's the mark of the freaks running Gotham.
Yeah.
He can't let Gotham be split anymore by the likes of Falcone. And Batman shows up on the scene. I love this bit. When faced with insurmountable odds, you must act swiftly, and some would say irrationally. And the point of this is, in any case, hesitation would mean death. But removing the most dangerous elements first, then methodically attacking each subsequent challenge in a separate but deliberate manner. I liked that his dad, and he was talking about surgery, but that influenced him in such a way that he used that himself. It was his dad's drive. His dad's because his dad in the beginning, we got to see an uncompromising man who was like magic to his son, and how those words would be something that would drive him in his own, for lack of a better word, this career of his. It's very interesting to see it that way. Catwoman, whose side are you on? When she says on the same side she's always on, did she mean herself, survival, or is there something deeper there? Because she, throughout this, it's a little hard, and I like that about her, it's hard to get a little handle on her because we do see, and we'll talk about a little bit, some confusing moments with her that I thought are really relevant to who she is.
Yeah, I initially, when I first read that, first thought I was popping in my head was my own.
My own.
But you think about it, what is her own throughout this? We never really know her interest in Falcone.
Because I think she outwardly likes to put up that wall.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, and that's, you keep mentioning the other two trades. I'm definitely picking those bad boys up because I gotta find out what side she was on because I know there's something more to it than just this. There's somebody else that she's either protecting or helping or doing. There is some hidden good in what she's doing.
Catwoman won in Rome.
Catwoman won in Rome. Okay.
Yeah. His message with the coin is that justice can be decided by it because the rules don't work. He faced that reality as the DA. No matter how many he brought to justice, the tide could be easily turned by corruption. And he kills Falcone, 2 shots to the head in that powerful piece of art. I mean, it was,
And they even pulled the line from earlier, 2 shots to the head, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right.
Yeah, I love that, bringing that back from the original, because Harvey even said that. And that was one of the first things that, when Bruce started looking at Harvey, it was that callousness of that line over the dead mobster. Because that's, you think about it, it's a dead mobster. Who cares? So what? Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Glad it happened to him.
Here's an interesting bit. Did Catwoman try to save Sophia's life? The dialogue there hints that she was trying to keep her from being shot by Harvey when she's, wrapped around her head like that. And the regret when the enraged Sophia falls to her death, she was clearly trying to save her there as well with the grab of the bar and things like that. I adore the complication of this character. She's interesting that way. Because if you really look at that sequence where she's wrapped around Sophia's head, she's talking her down.
Yeah, she's trying to calm her down because she sees her dad dead. Sophia's like the enraged bull. Right. She wants blood, she wants action, but she knows that's going to get her killed.
Right, so Catwoman tries to save her life there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I liked that. Bruce reaches out here, and it's an interesting parallel to what he tried with Falcone. But in this case, he feels guilt with Harvey. Gilda and the life that was is not for him anymore. Now, he knocks out Batman, but this Vernon bit, one of the better revenge sequences.
Yeah.
I hated Vernon by this point, and he was a major catalyst to ruining the lives of the Dents. And that was just wonderful, that whole sequence, which leads to the rooftop again, the meeting of the 3. There won't be any judges to be bribed, no witnesses to disappear. He killed Falcone. In his mind, justice was finally served. He fulfilled his rooftop promise. Harvey wants to be arrested. He wants to go through the system. In many ways, he wants to stand in front of his peers. He's proud of what he did at this moment.
Yeah.
Now, again, we talked about this earlier. Harvey knows here, right? The 2 killers reference was not about himself. He knows about Gilda.
He knows it was Gilda. And that was part of actually one of the reasons why I said maybe that was her gun that he was showing. That was the first inclination.
And I didn't see that at all. That's interesting.
Maybe that's what gave him the tip off that it was her.
That's interesting because I never looked at it that way, but that's a possibility. Now, when Bruce and Jim talk about whether or not it's worth it, Sure, the good guys won, but was the cost too high? What is your opinion on that? Do you think the cost is too high?
See, it's such a tough call because,
Right.
One of the things about Batman that I so respect and like about him, the fact that he doesn't take a life.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I'm looking going, you know what? Had Bruce just gone through and cleaned house, taken out Falcone, taken out Maroni, and just, started just dropping people left and right, dropping these mob bosses left and right, and just, just crossing the line, would that have made Gotham a better place?
Okay, let's go a different route. Forget about that. Bruce and Jim leave Gotham.
Right.
Or left Gotham. Harvey left Gotham. Is that the right route to go?
No. That I definitely don't think is the right route because you can't take the honest element out of the corrupt.
Okay.
But
so then,
can the honest element stay honest if they use the tactics of the dishonest? So if they started...
That's where belief, I think, is such an important part of this story. It's a fine line here because ultimately... Let me ask you this question. If you were in Gotham in the Jim Gordon role or the Harvey Dent role, would you stay there?
I'd like to say I would.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that I would say, okay, I'm the one honest cop that's going to fight the system from the inside and actually bring about change. But I'll be honest with you,
you need hope.
Yeah, you need hope. You need something. If there wasn't a Batman in Gotham, I would be looking, going, hey, that Metropolis.
Do you think they keep each other there? Do you think that's what it is? Bruce and Jim keep each other there. They need that friendship.
They definitely need each other.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a Batman in Gotham, I would be in Metropolis, hands down.
That's why Harvey was a huge blow to this man.
Yeah, it's a definite. And it's did the good guys win? It's a tough call, Is it a good day for a cop when they arrest the bad guys?
Bruce is giving up true happiness with Selina.
Right.
Because I really do believe that the two of them, they went off together, he's going to be a very happy man.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
And she's going to be very happy as well. I'm not just putting it out. I think the two of them could be very good for each other because there's a sense of adventure that the two of them, you see it when they're together. There is it's very sexy, the kind of the interplay between the two of them. You knew that they would not lead a boring life by any stretch. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Here's my question to you: Is it a good day for a cop when they arrest the bad guy, or is it a good day for the cop when they don't have anybody to arrest? What's the good day?
Well, ultimately, your goal would be to have nobody to arrest,
right?
Because that means your job. You are the protection of the city. I don't think any cop goes out, with the intention. I think maybe when you're young and you're getting started, you're like, oh, let's clean up and let's do all that. You ultimately want to be a deterrent. You don't want it to clean things up. You want to be a deterrent because that's a dangerous job. It really is. I have nothing but respect for the police because that is not a safe job by any stretch. One lunatic and you could be dead.
And so if you do have to act, is that a bad day then? If it's a good day not to have to arrest anybody.
It's a good day? I'll tell you when it's a good day. And I'm not in that job, so I'm speculating here. A good day is when you arrest that person with no harm to yourself or to them.
Okay, yeah.
I would say for a good police officer. Yeah. If you can walk through a situation unscathed, on all across the board, no innocents harmed, no innocent bystanders harmed, I would say that's still a good day.
Yeah.
I would say the day where there was nothing happening is probably it depends, though. I think, it depends. Like in a Gotham, any day where you feel like you've done something positive, because they're never going to see in their lifetimes, even Batman, he's never going to see in his lifetime a changed Gotham.
Yeah.
It's too corrupt. All he can hope is to put a dent in there and to be an agent of change, to set something in motion to inspire people to change, to react. In a way, the way he's building his sons and this core team. Yeah. It's one of the things I like about New Gotham is we're seeing right now in New Gotham in the current Batman books, the inspiration. Like when he died, it wasn't done. That rallied more people to get involved.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the fight.
Yeah, and even when he comes back, I think it's really important that we still see. I've always liked these bits of Team Batman.
Yeah, I'm really curious what's going to happen when because we know he's going to come back. Maybe
Sure.
it'll be in a year or such, but there's going to be a time when he comes back.
And the way realistically it could work out, we may see him back sooner than we see him back, if you
Right.
follow my meaning.
Oh, yeah, I definitely
We're
think
going to see him
that.
before we actually... And I'm hoping... I actually would like to see that play out. Because Dick Grayson, I'm loving as Batman
Yeah, it's...
right now. You know, I mean, that's an interesting exploration, so... But I want to see Bruce, too. Bruce is a very important character, so I'm chomping at the bit to eventually see Bruce. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Now, does Barbara secretly hope that when Harvey got arrested, that when she asked Jim what he would do now, that he might want to move from Gotham? Did you get that kind of undertone there? It almost seemed like, wow, look at everything. Because think of everything that surrounded them. This is their friends, their close friends that they would do things with. And their lives were devastated by this place. And knowing what we know about their relationship, that it doesn't last.
Yeah, part of me could be she's thinking that, or maybe she's thinking what's going to happen to Harvey, what's going to happen to Gilda. It's.
I think there's some of that too. I agree with you.
It's. Yeah,
I felt like her demeanor was very different there than what we've seen from her previously.
Yeah, I would say this is the beginning of the breakup of the Barbara and Jim Gordon marriage. You know, this really was something where she's like...
One of many events, probably.
We dodged a bullet here. You know, look what happened to Harvey and Gilda. Is that going to be us? Yeah. And this is where
Are we going to let it be us?
Yeah, this is where I'm thinking she either started thinking, hey, they wanted to leave after this was done. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should. Maybe we should go to a nice, quiet, calm city like Cleveland, you know, and enjoy the great, you know, life by the lake. I don't know.
Yeah. With great heroes like Nemesis guarding it.
Yes.
Jim can't leave, though, because he believes in the city. He also believes in the system. And those beliefs are, you know, it's a bookended theme that's been running throughout this book. Bruce has a similar revelation, that about the belief in Batman, that this might be the only way to change the city, that his promise is able to be realized, and that's something that keeps driving him. Harvey calling out to Gilda, right there I was convinced he knows it's her. Now, I didn't, the first read through, because of the way you read it, you see, okay, why is he shouting Gilda? I didn't, you know, he's just distraught over losing his wife and not being around her or anything. Yeah. But when you read it through again and you know everything leading up to it, whoa.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you right now, when I'm going through this whole thing, I was thinking it was Harvey, then I thought it was just him. When I read that Gilda, that was the first time I said, oh no, did she do it? Mm-hmm. And that, you know, him sitting in that cell saying Gilda, that was the first, I was like, oh man, did she, and that's when it really first, then it started clicking. Then as I'm reading the next page, I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. And I was just hitting myself in the head, just going, oh God, how could I have missed these obvious clues? And then I jumped back and immediately started digesting, reading more, rereading, and seeing these hidden clues. I was like, oh.
She's still under the impression, though, that it was him.
Yeah, I love that.
Over for him. Your promise we would finally be together when you didn't have so much work to do. I mean, that being a pivotal theme to her. Using things from Harvey and trying to make Batman think it was one of his freaks and not her. You know, the sad part is she's one of them. A victim to Gotham's corruption. She's also Holiday, so she's one of the freaks. She may cover up the crimes, but she has the same duality her husband does. She did the first three, but then assumed that her husband took over like it was some unspoken pact, some dark secret to build towards their future. We could have time together, a child, a secret. She doesn't believe it's Alberto. She believed it was her husband siding with her, and what an ending twist to the whole thing. Just very dark ending to the epilogue to the story. And I did not see that coming when I first read that through.
And I literally, it wasn't until he sat in the cell. That's when I first. That's when
that didn't set me up. I'm
and I didn't even. I'm not even going to say that I had this great epiphany saying it must be her. That was the first time I was like, oh my God, is that her? Mm-hmm. Then I went and I read. Then as I'm reading, like, oh my God, and it was just that this flowing. I was like, why. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I've read this story now probably over 12 times.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and every time we're getting ready to do a recording, I've read it. You know, as I said, I first read the thing, sat down, ordered the trade,
and not because you had to.
Yeah, I kept rereading this thing. I so in love with this story that it's just a great
you see why I picked
story.
this?
Oh, God, yeah.
I knew it was epic, and I'm like, I want to eventually get to it. And I apologize to listeners who've been waiting a long time for this one. It was something that I knew we had a lot on our plate on the show of things that we wanted to do, but it was an epic story, and it's been a while since we've done something very epic. And I put this on the slate a lot earlier than I should have. I should have waited a little bit longer, knowing we had interviews lined up and a whole bunch of other things. But I was excited to do this one, and I wanted to make sure that I at least had it on as something we would do for the show.
It is definitely just something I'm glad I've read. It was just... we talk about epic stories. This is a truly epic story, and hopefully we've related just that how much of an incredible story this is. This is not just a wonderfully written story. This is a written and visual story. That's why I love the fact that I have the Absolute now, because that's just sitting there and just you're flipping the big oversized pages, the thicker, heavier pages, and just
the art
appreciating the art.
The colorist was really great on this as well. It's a book that to me just visually was very, very stimulating. You know what I'd like to get into at some point in time? I don't know if anyone is a letterer that listens to the show, or if anyone knows, a letterer who might be interested in doing a podcast to kind of go through. I'd love to do with a letterer to go through an issue and talk about the lettering, because I do feel with the colorists that we've had on the show, I've got a greater understanding of coloring. I would love to really do a study into lettering like we've done with colors. I think it's an element of comics that'd be fun to kind of get into the head and say, hey, tell us a little bit about this.
What are you thinking? How are you thinking? Is it
because lettering's another one like coloring, where I think through the show, through doing this, I've gotten a better understanding of coloring. I would love to get an understanding of. There's a lot I'm sure that lettering does for me that I'm not realizing. It's just doing it, and it's working, and it's setting mood and tone. I've seen it a lot. Jonah Hex is a great book with it, where I see a lot of lettering work in there that I'm like, wow, that's really a cool choice and things like that. But I know there's a lot of stuff I miss, and when I say I miss it, I think it accomplishes its goal. It sets a mood, it sets a tone, it puts me in a place, but I don't consciously go, wow, look what that's doing for me. And I'd love to delve into that next.
I can tell you right now, there are times in this book, in this thing that we did, when after Harvey was Two-Face, they changed the lettering style, where it was a little bit squigglier. And as soon as I saw that, I started to talk. As I'm reading, in my head, I'm hearing a more gruffer voice.
Yes.
And there's been times when...
That's what I mean. Yeah. There's stuff like that where I think it happens naturally, and I don't consciously, which honestly... That's a sign of good lettering, because coloring does that for me sometimes, too. Yeah. It sets a mood and a tone. I'm not saying in my head, wow, coloring is doing that for me, but it is. And I think a good colorist is, David Barron's talked about that on the show, and Alan. So sometimes it's, your job is just to kind of keep that mood and keep that into place, and it shouldn't be in your face right like that. It should be subtle. And I think that's the sign of an artist, knowing... who's conveying a message, knowing when to pull back, and a letterer knowing when to just say, hey, it's important enough for me to set a mood and a tone here. It does, because if it's too in your face, it's going to be distracting. You want to be, in these stories, you want to be pulled in. It's escapist fiction. So you want to be pulled in, and you want to believe it's really happening in front of you. You don't want anything that's going to say, wait a minute, hey, there's the dialogue box, and it's doing all that. So that's actually a compliment to the letterer as well. A lot of times that it does just what you said without it being in your face. But you're right. Those moments with Harvey's where the text changes, it was drastically different than when he was just playing Harvey Dent.
It was Harvey Dent. And even the psychotic Harvey Dent that started having, there was changes in how the lettering looked.
Yeah.
There's...
And the kudos to the letterer on that. It really is something, though, I would love to get a better understanding and appreciation for what they do. It's not that I don't appreciate it. It's that I'm not a letterer, so from a fan's perspective, I know that they're doing that for me. I just don't see it as much. So it'll be kind of a fun thing to explore eventually as well. Cool stuff. This was just a great read. Our next one's going to be For Tomorrow. Actually, funny story with For Tomorrow. We've tried to record it now twice, and we've never had this happen before, where we've had to go on this level. Every so often, Skype will update, and for whatever reason, when it updated, and my drivers updated and everything like that, I started having major problems with the program we were using to record Skype. I'm not going to say what the program is because I'm not trying to bash the program. It's whatever reason with my configuration that program stopped working. We started sounding like you said it best, like we were Doctor Who villains.
Yeah.
It was recording basically a 5-minute segment. It was reading it as 4 hours and stretching it out that long. So it was completely insane. So I tried uninstalling and reinstalling everything. It's one of the reasons why this show was late, because I completely redid and reinstalled everything on the computer, which was good. I needed to clean up everything anyway. Periodically, you just need to do that because I use this for work and everything. But anyway, we tried with Mandy recording this a couple of times, and I finally I switched programs. I found a new program that we're using, which actually I'm happier with because of voicemail. It actually works better with our voicemails. So we're going to actually have some listener voicemails on this episode in our next segment now. But For Tomorrow is coming. It's going to be it's going to kick off towards the end of this month into August. We're looking at probably a 2-parter. It's hard to say right now because it's 12 issues, but this one was like 15 with the double-sized issue. So I'm betting we can get that in 2 parts. So we'll do For Tomorrow for that. And our next book is going to be, and we're going to get a deal going with In-Stock Trades. I want to wait till after For Tomorrow, until after we record that, to get that going. The next book that Jim and I are going to do, which is not a listener selection, is Preacher. We had 4 listeners who correctly followed the clues. From the Hardy Boys, the actor was Sean Cassidy, which is Cassidy the vampire from Preacher. The Dukes of Hazzard, it was Uncle Jesse, Jesse Custer. And The Flowers Tulip. So that was the clues. Yep. What was yours? Yours was
mine was going to be da 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 da.
Son of a Preacher Man.
Son of a Preacher Man.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know the song.
Yeah. And I had another one I was going to do. I totally forget what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, Custer's Last Stand. I was going to do.
Yeah, somebody's
last stand. I was going to do that to get Jesse Custer's last name. But so Preacher is going to be next. I've wanted to do that for like the longest time. And it'll be great to end off like the summer season with something really edgy. And that's really edgy.
Parental warning.
Yeah. Danger.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since we've done something like that. A Vertigo one like that.
Yeah.
Right. So that'll be you and me doing Have you read any Preacher yet?
Yes. Yeah, I've been picking up some of the trades. I really love it.
Did you read so you've read the first trade?
Yeah, I've already read it.
Oh, cool. All right. So this will be a fun one to do. I didn't know if it was one of those that were stockpiling.
I want to say I have read like 2 or 3 of the trades. I got to look to see where I got to see where it is on my list and how many of the issues I have. And
see, I read that all as singles, and I liked it so much that I rebought all the trades.
Yeah.
So I don't have the single issues anymore. I have the trades because I just like doing some of those Vertigo books. They read real well in trades. But now I ordered the hardcover. I may rebuy this in hardcover. It's that good.
Yeah.
You know, what I'll do is I'll buy the hardcover and sell my trades because somebody will read it. I'm not going to keep the trades, but I might want to own this one in hardcover because I'm sure I want to see what the hardcovers look like. If it's got that high quality paper and all that all the way through, I'm kind of like, ooh, Preacher, I think I'd like to own it this way.
I'll tell you right now, that's going to be hardcover for me as well.
Because I'm thinking money-wise now, I'm starting to rethink double owning things. You know, in the sense, like, if I buy it for the collected edition, I'm going to sell, like, some more of my singles now. Like, I'm actually thinking with Starman of selling my set.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny.
Just only because I love these omnibuses so much that I'm kind of like, well, you know, somebody might want the singles, and I could sell them that way, and I could use the money. So I'm thinking about doing that because the hobby does. I mean, this is an expensive hobby. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be reading the omnibuses from now on, so maybe I should just go and grab that. So I know it's kind of a way I'm leaning. So I might be eBaying some things. Honestly, I think I need to eBay some things just because there's stuff that I want to read in collected editions that I've had to cut back on my purchasing of them, and I want to use some of that to finance things new to read. So, I don't know, it's an interesting little twist. So, we'll see. But, and how's your stockpile coming?
Yeah.
It's still increasing?
Yeah. Big time. And yeah, I picked up all of the Starman because I wanted to. I couldn't wait for the Omni. And so now I'm getting the Omni. I'm like, dang it, why'd I do that? I'm an idiot. And
oh, you have all the singles of Starman?
Yeah, I have all the singles of Starman.
I forgot about that. I forgot that you went and did that.
I went and did that because I couldn't wait for and they're coming out more frequently.
Have you read them?
No, that's the thing.
So you're kind of reading the omnibuses anyway.
Yeah. Because they're coming out more frequent than I thought they would. So I'm like, I can wait for this.
And I like the dialogue pieces from him in there, and the extra. The extras, those are done really well with the extras.
I'm like, so now I have the full run of Starman, and I'm like, oh, come on, Jim, you're an idiot. Yeah.
I'm very torn on that. That's one of those, like, am I going to sell it? Am I not? I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. Because I like the series so much. But then I'm kind of like, what do I need these for if they're – because they're reprinting everything. The Shade minis, they're doing the showcase stuff. So I'm like, I could eBay some of this and use that money towards the next 3 omnibuses.
Yeah. And just like, there's other stuff that I'm looking at now.
Right.
Like, I've always wanted to pick up the Young Justice. But now that they're acknowledging Superboy, I'm like, maybe they will actually one day trade the Young Justice series. Well, one of the things that stopped them was because of all the lawsuits and everything going on. Well, if they're acknowledging that Connor Kent is Superboy now,
I hope
maybe we'll get something out of that. So
that is such a good series too. That is really such a good series. So I know it's interesting. Oh well, let's go on to some listener voicemails.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
We've actually had a little bit of technical difficulties on our end, which is kind of normal whenever you're working with a computer. I mean, we've had 167 shows, and overall things run pretty smooth, but every so often you hit like a glitch, especially when you're dealing with software and all that. So we didn't have listener voicemails last week, and we finally have gotten that problem resolved, so they're back this week. I have an audio comment, too, which is I'm going to save for our next episode, just because time-wise I want to get this show out tonight, and it's about 10:20 right now, so if I don't finish recording this soon. So I'm going to do the voicemails this episode. I'm going to start off with the audio comment when we get to this particular segment on next week's show, and then any new listener voicemails as well, so please keep getting those in. That voicemail line is, as always, 1-440-388-4434. And let's just jump right into your thoughts.
Hey, Sean and Jim. My name's Chris. I'm a relatively new listener and a comic book reader, for that matter. I'm 23. I used to read comics when I was younger. A Spider-Man arc here, a Batman arc there. Not in any kind of real habitual way like I do now. Well, first off, I just wanted to correct you on the Batman and Robin price, which was $2.99, and really props to DC for the $2.99 price on that, because they could have easily done $3.99. I just wanted to comment on your thing about the whole prices and all that stuff, and I really wanted to say, being a Marvel and DC guy, I really like that, DC can, even though with the new price increase and everything, DC can really be a little bit more reasonable with their prices than Marvel can. And I didn't call to bash Marvel and why, their prices are higher than DC, but the fact of the matter is every single limited series is $3.99 in Marvel. That's not always the case in DC, and in my opinion, they're kind of just screwing themselves, because each week I find myself, buying a few more DCs and a couple less Marvels, and that's just how it is, Loving the Batman stuff right now. Absolutely phenomenal, as well as the Green Lantern stuff. So looking forward to Blackest Night. Just wanted to call in, throw my 2 cents in. Again, love the show. See you guys soon.
That's actually a really relevant topic point, because realistically, and I didn't take it as you bashing Marvel. It really is. There's a difference between talking about quality of the product and just talking about this whole pricing, because I think it's a very popular topic right now. And I want to say, for me, is it affecting me as far as what I'm purchasing? No, I think the quality is really high. And I'm glad you made that point, because actually when Jim and I were talking, because I pre-order my books, I guess I just assumed that a lot of your top-tier titles, like your Batman titles, for example, had gone to that $3.99, so I just naturally assumed Batman and Robin was $3.99. But no, you're right, it was $2.99, and it seems that any of these ones with the second features or the extra page counts, like in our ad we talked about Superman Secret Origin, that's going to be $3.99, but that's an extra page count. I don't have a problem paying an extra buck for that. I'm going to be curious to see where this goes over time. I get concerned with that price point, and I don't care if it's Marvel, DC, independents, any comic company, anybody that's doing a price increase, what's happening is that's taking away dollars from people trying new titles. And it's taking away dollars from people trying some of the lesser-known titles that they might have otherwise given a shot. So that's where I get concerned with that, not so much for myself, but for a more casual reader. I'm more of a hardcore reader, admittedly. But I like my titles to be there because I'm a hardcore reader who likes a lot of diversity. One of the reasons why I have so much fun with my comics and, I am very happy with my pull list is because I feel it's very diverse. Not just with superhero books, but with, stuff that's going on in Vertigo, with independents that I'm reading, with Marvel titles that I'm reading. I'm a big fan of Marvel's Stephen King output. I think it's a great output line. Captain America right now is pretty darn stellar, and I've never been a huge Cap fan, but I'm a Marvel fan, and, I'm more of an X-Book Spider-Man fan than a Captain America or Avengers fan. And it's funny, right now, New Avengers, Mighty Avengers, stuff like that has been stuff that I've been really enjoying. But it is funny, the twist that you're mentioning as far as Marvel making the move to that. It is something that I've noticed miniseries. I'm glad to see some of the lesser-known miniseries that DC's doing are staying at least in the $2.99 range for right now. Something like what's the Starlin work with Strange Adventures. That stuff is extra page count for the extra price point. So again, we're dealing with the extra pages, and that story benefits from having the co-features in it because you get different perspectives on the characters that are in it. So I'm hoping that those Strange Adventures books, we're going to see more of that output because I've been really digging those. So, yeah, you're right. The price points, like I said, from my standpoint, I'm not concerned for myself. I'm more concerned with sales numbers because that ultimately drives cancellations. And I'm worried that, a book dropping because of a price increase, not necessarily to that book, but to other books, they might lose some readership that they would have otherwise had. So I'm concerned with the diversity of the titles. I hope I'm wrong. Hope I'm dead wrong on that because I'm hoping that the attach rate is people recognize the quality and the fact that if you get these co-features in books, because I'm loving them. There has not been a single book with the co-features yet, and I'm really not just saying that, because we're not paid on this show to say anything. I don't really, if I hate something, I'm going to tell you, because I don't really care. But, the co-features right now have been pretty darn stellar. I'm seeing people back that either have had titles previously, such as Manhunter and Blue Beetle, or, people that haven't had their own titles, like Renee Montoya as The Question, that I'm seeing regularly now featured in a book. And so far, the kickoffs have been really good. I'm hoping that they maintain that. Ravager, for example, is Sean McKeever's Ravager has always been, I think, one of the highlights of his Teen Titans run, and to see that as a co-feature, and I thought that first kickoff of that was pretty stellar. So I'm hoping that that quality remains the forefront and that people will continue to support those books because of the quality. And for both companies, I think comics right now are just at an insanely high quality. And that's why I get concerned that the price point is not for the current readers, it's for new readers who might try out a title, might avoid something because if at retail they buy, 4 $3.99 books, they're going to be like it's $16. So I don't know. That's an interesting point. I don't think diehard comic fans are going to shy away as much as a more casual fan. And that's what I'm wondering. But we'll see. We'll see. I didn't mean it all gloom and doom, as I said, and I'm really glad you actually presented this, because now that we've had like a full month of seeing these co-features as they've come out and these extra dollars for the extra dollar for the issue, I'm really happy with the extra pages and the content we're getting from it, because they're characters that I think realistically they're finding they aren't ready for their own book, or they had their own book and the numbers weren't something that the company was happy for, but now we're getting a chance for some creative teams to really establish these characters. Maybe they'll spin out into their own titles. My hope is that we start seeing more co-features, and maybe not everything needs to spin off into a title. Maybe these books can show that, hey, if you put a co-feature in there, that's going to generate more sales numbers for that individual title, and maybe we can keep 2 books paired together and it'll save a title. That I'm hoping Booster Gold starts to see a sales increase from this, because I love Booster Gold. Booster Gold sales are pretty good. I'm hoping, though, that, for Blue Beetle, that this will give another boost and kick Booster Gold sales up even higher, bringing a new fan base into there that likes Blue Beetle and now attaches to Booster Gold, and maybe fans get the best of both and get to follow two wonderful characters each month. And I think that might be something that I hope is an interesting thing that works out of this experiment, and they end up sticking with that if the sales numbers generate that. It's interesting. I'm really curious to see how this works out. I think it's something we're all going to have to follow, and hopefully, I hope it works out for the positive. I really, really do.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Rick Croxton from the Book Cave, and I just want to thank you for getting me interested in Batman again. With the new Batman, which being Richard Grayson, otherwise known as Dick Grayson, it's really, DC has turned up the excitement up several notches. With his new Batman and the new Robin, and Robin being a little bit of a pain, Damian Wayne at times can be a pain, and other times can be interesting. For a 10-year-old kid, he can be a bit of a brat. But then, aren't most of them. But then, with the Red Robin, Tim Wayne has kind of changed a lot since the last time I've seen him as Tim Drake. He's a lot more mature and older, and looks like he's about willing to cross a few lines that he would never cross before as Robin himself. So I've really kind of got an interest in it. I mean, I've picked up the Batman and Robin 1 and 2. I picked up the new Batman series, new Red Robin. I even picked up a few of the other stuff like Gotham Siren and the other. What was that other one? Gotham City. That's more about the normal people in there, like Commissioner Gordon and all. And I want to keep on picking these up. I mean, it might be that one of the few DC titles left I'm picking up, but it's really been pretty good. I mean, I'm also picking up, of course, the Justice Society, and I will be picking up the Adventure Comics when it comes out, because I'm a huge Legion fan. I figure it's been enough for me for now. And thanks a lot, and make sure and visit the Book Cave whenever you can. And thanks a lot, and bye for now.
I want to remind everyone about Adventure Comics, because that one, woof. The preview art on DC's blog, and if you go to RagingBullets.com, across the top we have a direct link to DC's blog page, because it's very cool. I go there regularly just to check out the previews that they're putting up there, and they've shown some more internal artwork from that beautiful looking book, and that's another one that, wow, the anticipation's very high for what's going to be coming out of that particular read. I'm glad that you got turned on to the Bat books, because I honestly, I'm so bat happy at the moment. All of those have been just stellar. I was like, whoa, because I was a little concerned, because I'm a Bruce fan, and I mean, that ultimately draws me. Although I say that, and I mean, I really enjoyed when Jean-Paul Valley was Batman for that particular run. That was an interesting, because you knew then that Bruce was going to eventually come back. But it was interesting back then, because I think while, yeah, you knew deep down that Bruce was going to come back, something like that to take the main character out like they did at that point wasn't something you've seen as much as you do today. So it was something a little bit more an interesting exploration, because you didn't know what was going to happen. This is great, though, because I do like that in his quote-unquote death, we've seen that he has left a legacy, and that there are people stepping up, and Gotham, this new Gotham, is an interesting place full of a whole bunch of interesting characters. I definitely want to talk Streets of Gotham and Detective Comics next week, pretty in depth, because both of those reads I think are well worth talking about. And of course, Batman and Robin #2 has come out since we had our initial Speeding Bullets segment, so doing lots of Batman talk next week, and more Superman, and because we got to talk about that whole Superman universe, which is pretty stellar as well. It's been a pretty good time to be a reader. JSA, I'm very, very excited to read the new team. This current arc with Jerry Ordway and Bob Wyacek has been really great, and it's really kept my anticipation high for JSA. It's funny, it was a fill-in arc, but it felt just as interesting and powerful as some of the arcs that came before it. So that was kudos to editorial and DC for putting those great creators on that particular book, because it looked stunning and really just was a great lead-in to what I'm really excited for in this new run. So good stuff. And actually, I said that I wasn't going to be able to get to the audio comment, but I am going to be able to jump right to that right now, because I thought we had more voicemails than we do. So I want to get that audio comment in as well. So here it is.
Hi, Sean and Jim. Absent-minded Professor Kent Hare here again. This actually originated as a post on a different message board, but when I finished it, I realized it might make a good audio comment for your show. It was in response to someone's reply to my posting an announcement that I had just received a call from the folks at Library Binding Company that my 2-volume hardcover binding of Trinity was ready to be shipped to me. Before I get to the heart of this comment, which is meant to throw some love Trinity's way, as well as give a couple of my views regarding its predecessor year-long weeklies, let me say a couple of words about binding. Sean, you and I have exchanged a couple of emails some months back about binding comics. It's a wonderful way to transform your comic books into permanent parts of your library, standing up on your shelves right beside your publisher's collections, getting them out of the bags and boards and long boxes or locking boxes or whatever, and making them easily accessible and readable. I'll throw a couple of pictures into an email and send them your way as well. Sure, hardcore collectors argue that the binding process ruins the collectability, that is, the investment value, that the individual issues might have. But I'm a reader, not a comic book investor, and I've been looking for something like this all my life. It was about a year ago that I first discovered Library Binding Company through a short-lived banner on the Raging Bullets website. Whatever happened to those books you said you were sending them to try this out, Sean? And after a great deal of drooling over photos of other people's bound books on various message boards, I sent off the entire Series 52 and got back a nice 2-volume hardcover set. I'm now about 25 volumes into binding my entire comic book collection, which I anticipate will run to about 60 volumes as it stands right now. It's very reasonably priced, $15 for the basic binding. When you include shipping and insurance to get the books there and back again, I'm running about $24 per volume. And I'm reading stuff I haven't looked at or thought about for years, loving it all over again. For those interested in checking out various examples, there are a couple of fora. One on Raging Bullet's own message board host, the Comic Forums, scroll down to Comic Binding. The other I'm aware of on the Marvel Masterworks message board called Uncollected Editions, the Homegrown Hardcovers Binding Forum. I'm sticking the URLs in an email as well. But, as I said, the purpose of this comment is really to talk about Trinity and so forth. Responding to my announcement, someone said, "You're one of the few who stuck with Trinity till the end, especially after Countdown. How was it?" Well, here was my response, more or less. I actually stopped buying Trinity fairly early on, after the first 4 issues, in fact, deciding to wait for the trades. It wasn't so much that I didn't like it then, as that I figured it was unfolding so slowly that it would read much better in a collection. I've been generally a wait-for-trader for the past several years anyway. Then I discovered binding, and did my 2-volume test bind of 52, and knew that was how I wanted Trinity. I scrambled to pick up the issues I had not pre-ordered. I used mailordercomics.com for my current purchasing, thus have to order a couple months in advance, and I caught back up. I did read it from that point as I went along, and overall enjoyed it. I anticipate it will be an even better weekend read before the summer's out and it's back to class for the professor. But then, say what it might about my taste, I generally enjoyed Countdown too, particularly after I bound it and read it all straight through. Say what the all-encompassing you will. That series is not as bad as its rap, in my opinion, even though there's no question that it did not do what it was supposed to do. But Trinity I felt to be what a 52-issue, 1,000-plus page weekly series, The War and Peace of the DCU, should be, taking plenty of time to develop the characters in the story, which was totally independent of what was currently going on in the wider DCU. One of Countdown's major pitfalls early on was trying to be too tied into everything else. And by all accounts, Trinity did what it was meant to do: explore the place of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in the DC multiverse. My main quibble with 52, as much as I love it as it stands, is that it was supposed to fill in the gap between Infinite Crisis and 1 year later. But at the end, and even several years later, we still wonder such things as exactly how Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Bullock came back to GCPD and what was going on with, well, the Trinity. If I recall correctly, the only one who gets any kind of attention is Clark Kent. Bruce Wayne got, what, 1 issue? And I don't remember anything about Wonder Woman. But I ramble on too much. Verdict: I like Trinity. Oh, one more good word about Trinity. The consistency of the art, both in the main story, entirely by Bagley, and by the rotating teams on the co-features, which are so integral to the main story as to be essentially part of it. It's a masterful achievement overall. Sean and Jim, I think these views are pretty much in line with yours, at least with regard to Countdown and Trinity. 52 was before my time following your show. So why say it again? DC's collections of Trinity are now coming out. Volume 1 of 3 is already out. The second is due in September, according to Amazon. And they are a perfect way for people who passed on the weekly to pick it up now. So I figured it was time to throw some love toward the Trinity. Oh, one last thing. Did y'all see that preview of Adventure Comics #1 that went up on DC's blog, The Source, Wednesday the 1st? Wow! I cannot wait for this to hit. Again, I love the show. My wife calls you my BFFs, and that's how I feel. Hope to meet you in person one day. Till then, cheers, the Prof.
As far as the library binding thing goes, I probably should start there first. I'm actually glad you called me on this. To be honest, it's an issue of I dropped the ball, which happened maybe only a couple times since we've been doing the show. On the show end of it, I'm the production end. I usually deal with sponsors. I deal with, basically everything outside of the show when we're not recording. That's no insult to Jim. Jim is a major part of the show, but it's this was my idea, so it winds up being kind of my lot to take care of all that. Well, what happened was I got contacted by Library Binding. I did a few show spots for them, and I just never got around to it. Got into a bad time in my school year where I had to do report cards, and I just dropped the ball. It was one of those things where I had to do things professionally for my job, and I never got back to it. So I actually, based on your comment, and I've seen wonderful Library Binding productions. We had a listener who came up to me to show the complete Joker series that I actually have on the website as in our sketches section. It's gorgeous looking. He got the entire Joker series bound, which is something that hasn't been collected as well. I want to get some of my Hawkman stuff bound. I'm with you. I'm a reader. I mean, that's more, there's some things that I have that I would resell for the purpose of, I just need some extra money or something like that. And I'm glad that I read it, but I have no problem parting with it because either I've rebought it in a collected edition or, at this point I'm just ready to move on and I need, the money for that purpose. But a majority of the things that I buy are things that I want to read and reread again. And I've got entire runs of almost every Hawkman series. Actually, the initial one, the initial Hawkman material that was collected in the showcase volumes is actually all that I have that's not in single issue of the Hawkman stuff. And I'd like to have a lot of that stuff that's not collected bound. But also, the first series that I'm going to get bound by them is DC Solo. Because I have that run, and I don't think that's going to be collected. And that was wonderful. It was a showcase. Each issue showcased an artist, and I'd love to get that bound. So thank you very much for bringing this up, because I do agree with you. It's something that I think there's a lot of our listeners who would highly benefit from checking out Library Binding. And I've seen not just the Joker collection that I mentioned. I've seen a number of just wonderful collections in person, and they do such a wonderful professional job. Sure, if you're looking to resale, that's not the option for you. But there's a lot of people listening to this that are just looking to hold on to it forever, and it might be an option for you for things that you want to reread over and over again. I know it is for me. I'm not going to get everything library bound, but I'm going to get a bunch of things that I want to eventually get to. It's an honest issue of the show getting in the way of something that I should have done. And it's one of the few times during the show that I've dropped the ball, but it is one, I got to admit, I dropped the ball on that one. And I'm willing to man up on that one and just admit that was the case. I was glad to hear your weekly love for Trinity and Countdown. Countdown, I agree with you. It's one of those series that, as a reading series, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it all the way through. It just, the small gripe for me at the end, it just didn't tie in the way that it should have. I do agree that it got better as it went on. And it was one of those things where I think Trinity benefits from 52 and Countdown. I'm not to say, that I think 52 and Countdown were very different weekly series, but I think there were mistakes probably made along the way in both that Trinity benefited from. I enjoyed both, though. I always looked at 52 and Countdown and Trinity as experimenting with weekly series, trying to find out what works for that type of storytelling. It was really different to give authors 52 weeks to tell a story and for them to know that they've got 52 weeks to deliver that particular story, whether it's a group of people working together or one writer or in the case of even Trinity, it was a couple writers writing on Trinity. It was Fabian Nicieza and Kurt Busiek. And just the art team on Trinity, I thought everything just came together really well. I really enjoyed every week visiting the characters in there and the unfolding drama. And I liked that there were certain characters that were spotlighted in Trinity that you don't see in the DC universe. Tarot and Gangbuster, I thought that was a wonderful relationship that was developed all the way through the story while it was spotlighting the three main characters. I still say that is a series, if you got a friend or anybody who's interested in the DC universe who's maybe a casual reader, that's a great series to say, here, this will give you a flavor for what this world is like and why it's so cool, because you get everybody in there, from JSA, JLA, all those teams through the different, transitions. And I actually don't want to say too much for maybe people who haven't read it, because you were doing an intro for the trades, and I thought you did such a nice job on it. But, that's one Trinity was definitely one I'd recommend. More so than the other two, and that's not an insult to 52 or Countdown, because you can listen to the episodes. I stand behind everything I said about them. I really liked those books, but I think Trinity, just by its goal that it met, its goal was really to be the DC universe, and it did it, and it delivered it. And I think 52 benefited. I know what you're saying about that edict with 52, but I think 52 benefited by the writers realizing that better to put together a tighter story than to stick with that original edict. Countdown, I think they did the same thing. I think they changed and veered off the edict along the way, because Countdown was supposed to be the spine of the universe, and DC at multiple panels, about a quarter of the through, said that they're veering off that edict, and I think that was a good move for Countdown as well. But I think Countdown's taken a lot of harsh criticism that I don't think it necessarily deserved. I thought it was a good read. I really do. Overall, I do agree with completely agree with you with the conclusion. It just didn't tie into the book that it was supposed to, which that's a pretty interesting failure. But as far as a journey and a story experience, I had a lot of fun with it, and for 52 weeks to read a story and have that good of a time with it, that's a victory. So, I don't know, interesting. So I'm glad you said that. I actually want to shout out a couple things before we wrap up the show. The Screaming Tiki Con is going to be this weekend. It's www.screamingtikicon.com. They're not a show sponsor, but Jim and I are both going to be there. And this convention season, this summer, is talking about craziness. We're talking about library binding. Jim and I are literally from week to week right now scrambling to find times to get together to record. Not a bad thing. I mean, we're still fully committed to the show, and we're going to get the episodes out to you every week just like, we've wanted to. But the convention season is going to be a little difficult for us this year. We normally hit Wizard World Chicago. We're not going to be able to do that. We were planning to do a Raging Bullets Geekend, and the reason why we haven't done anything with it or approached anything, we haven't been able to find a weekend that the two of us both have available to be able to do that. We're going to do something with that again because we loved that Gypsy Cafe get-together that we had last year, and I definitely want to do it again. I just actually got an email about it from one of our listeners asking when we're going to do that. There's been a reason why I haven't announced anything. This summer is just nuts. Jim and I both have a lot going on, from weddings to vacations to families visiting and things like that are kind of getting in the way of us trying to put something like that together, but we're going to do it. But this Screaming Tiki SuperCon is going to be here in Cleveland. And for Smallville fans, Sam Witwer, who played Doomsday, Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor, are both going to be there. Battlestar Galactica, the great Edward James Olmos. I mean, that series, that's Adama. I mean, Adama rocks. Ray Park is going to be there. Darth Maul, and I hate to just call him Darth Maul because he's been in so many great movies since then. Supergirl Helen Slater, Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers, Daniel Logan, who played Boba Fett, Todd DeZago, Craig Rousseau, Michael Sangiacomo, Tom Zoller, and more are going to be there from the comic creators end. The Batcopter is going to be there. So it's an interesting con. It's going to be July 10th, 11th, and 12th. Jim and I are going to be there. I'm going to be there for sure on the 10th, and I think the 11th or the 12th. I'm going to be there at least 2 days of the weekend, maybe more. But if you're going to be there, shoot me an email at ragingbullets@gmail.com. I certainly would be happy to meet up with anybody. My plan is to only go 2 days because I'm not going with a group on any of those days, but if you're going to be popping up there, I'll gladly pop up all three if people are going to be there to visit with. So let me know, because I'm looking forward to seeing this con. I might pop up all three, especially if I have fun on Friday. I might wind up popping up all three. So that's going to be the Screaming Tiki SuperCon, which is in our backyard. We do have a new Life in the Gutter. Mandy's going on vacation, but she managed to shoot one in, so that's up on the website as of this episode posting. And we also have a brand new column that is called Back to the Drawing Board. And if you have a chance, check that out. It's a brand new column that's going to be regularly up on ragingbullets.com. So it's great. Thank you very much to both of you for the new columns that are out there. I think that's going to be one that's going to be particularly fun. Later in the month, you'll get to hear Mandy on our show. She was our contest winner, and she chose For Tomorrow, so good stuff. I should add that Back to the Drawing Board is done by Jay Ferguson, so welcome, Jay, to the Raging Bullets family, and thank you so much for doing that column. It's great. And remember that anything you do for the show, website-wise, whether it's Where's What Not Nows, columns, audio comments, even voicemails. If you shoot me an email that you've called in for voicemails, I'll put you on the contest list. Participating in the show enters you into our drawing for a guest spot on the show where you get to choose the topic that we talk about. Super Mandy won for Tomorrow, and we'll be doing another one after Preacher. We'll be doing another one where we'll be jumping on in for that. Anyway, let's kick into the closing.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
These Plutonian beam makers a visit. Jim, I want to thank our sponsors for this episode, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. The Green Lantern Agent Orange hardcover, regularly $19.99, 40% off, only $11.99. The Superman Secret Origin, 1 of 6. It's at a special discount, $3.99 for 48 pages, 50% off, only $1.99. The variant cover's available as well. They have it for $7. So if people would like to get those variants, and there's been a couple variants lately that I've been eyeing, but to get them in advance like that's always nice. From Brian Azzarello and artists Jim Lee and Scott Williams, In Stock Trades is offering us either the Absolute Edition or the trade paperback editions at 47% off discounts of Superman For Tomorrow. It's Superman number 204 to 215, the 12-issue run. Regularly $75 for the Absolute, 47% off, only $39.75. The trade paperbacks, Volume 1 and Volume 2, regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. And I want to thank InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our listeners with that discount. We're going to be doing a discount with them for Preacher. We're waiting until we air For Tomorrow for that. I just figured the contest was a great way to get our listeners involved. I had 4 people that got it correctly within the time frame. I was going to only do the top 3, but 2 of them, I don't know who was first. So I'm just going to give it to both of them, and that was really cool. So thank you for everybody for participating. I think what we'll do is bi-monthly, we'll go ahead and do a contest of some sort with them. And I want to thank the listeners. There was listener donations. That was particularly Chad Burdett, Unknown Fanboy, donated a bunch of items for that particular contest winning. So thank you very much to our listeners for supporting us. So Good stuff. Remind everyone about the Hero Initiative. That's heroinitiative.org. So please make sure to check that out if you want any information on it. And there's a handy link on our site, to go over there and donate. And I do say, please consider the cost of an issue just to donate. That $2.99 or $3.99 to donate that periodically to people who've given us so much joy. It's not a lot of money, and it's a great way to kind of say, hey, this month I'm going to donate that money to the people who need it. So that's a very, very cool way to support people in this hobby that we love so much. Jim, our next episode, and for next couple, we're going to be sticking to around Monday for the release date for the next couple weeks because of my schedule that's coming up. I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on the next couple weeks, so we're going to stay with a consistent Monday night schedule. We're going to be doing 2 weeks of Speeding Bullets because there's a whole heap of stuff that you and I both really want to talk about.
Desperate to talk about.
Yeah, across DC and Vertigo and who knows what else. I'm back reading a bunch of stuff too that I'd like to discuss. So we're going to be chatting a whole bunch of the big events and some of the smaller books that need some attention as well. We're definitely talking Secret Six next week. Yeah. I so want to talk about.
We've been chomping it. It's like, come on.
Yeah, and it's just time-wise we haven't been able to get to it. We're going to be doing at least 3 issues of Secret Six because I'm with you. I want to start at that Battle for the Cowl issue and talk about the first 2 parts of this current arc as well because. That book is good. I will say to anybody, if you're not reading Secret Six, we're going to be chatting a whole bunch next week. You might want to pick those issues up. I want to talk Vigilante.
Oh, okay,
well.
yeah.
Vigilante number 7 came out, and it's post this whole Death Trap thing. And I loved him in Death Trap. It was great. It's great to see him back in his own book, kind of exploring where his character is going from. Death Trap, I think, served as a great way to escalate.
Really cool introductory to the guy.
Yeah, but it also escalated this character's situation from where we saw it before Death Trap. And I really liked that kind of feeling of just it feels like very run, Lola, run, like he's in a race against time and needs to hurry quickly to get to the next move or else. So I really like that book. So I'd like to talk about that as well. I got a whole bunch of stuff. I just really want to get to chatting about some books. But anyway, that'll be next week. I want to also talk that JSA versus Cobra.
Ooh, yes.
Because very beautiful book.
Yeah.
Very cool mini. Some of those Final Crisis Aftermath minis that we have not gotten a chance to talk about, I'd really like to discuss. I want to talk Run. I want to talk Escape. I want to talk Ink. They're all a dance.
Are we human or are we dancer?
But I mean, there's a number of things that we have not had a chance to get to on the show that I'd really like to discuss. And a couple new Bat Family books that we haven't discussed yet. Because we've got Streets of Gotham and Detective Comics we have not formally discussed on the show. So we will be discussing those as well and we've got to revisit Batman and Robin.
Yes, we do.
Because in particular, you have some commentary coming up that I'd like to discuss. I'm dying to talk for tomorrow with you as well, because you were suitably creepy in your presentation last time that I mentioned that we're talking about it. I can't wait.
I can't.
All right, we will see you next week.
Bye.